us as survivors, but it also is this great, wonderful place for you to learn more about the other people associated with your care. You've often, most times, only seen your oncologist, but here with CHEC, as well as with the Cancer Center, you get to see the other human beings that are equally passionate about finding the cure and giving you the most excellent cancer care and being a part of your cancer team. So today, if you find yourself having any questions about anything that's been addressed in a panel, today is for you. So as they've said, put your questions, put your comments in the chat, put your questions in the Q&A, and let's just have a really good time celebrating our survivorship. And so with no further ado, I'd like to introduce the most extraordinary human being, Dr. Corinne Watson, who is both the director of the Miles Square Health Center and has had personal interaction or has been impacted by cancer himself and with some loved ones. And so he's going to share that with you, and I give you the floor, Dr. Watson.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and to the others. First of all, I want to say congratulations to the UI Cancer Center and to the Chicago Cancer Health Equity Collaborative, Chicago CHEC, for another year of ensuring that we create a space and a place for us to celebrate not only survivors, but thrivers. We like to think that, as Kimberly said, we are passionate and committed to ensuring that the UI Cancer Center, as well as the Miles Square Health Center, creates a place for advocacy and comprehensive care. So as the Associate Director of Community Outreach and Engagement for the UI Cancer Center, it's been my privilege to work with our Office of Community Engagement and Health Equity, which we call CHE, as well as to work with the Chicago CHEC program to ensure that there's activities such as this. But more importantly, as Kimberly said, we want to make sure that we hear from you. So please put the questions in the chat. Let us know how we can help, because we want to make sure that our programming and that our activities are responsive to you. As Kimberly said, I've seen firsthand what information from Chicago CHEC as well as the UI Cancer Center can do. I've been unfortunately impacted by cancer in several of my loved ones, most recently losing my oldest brother to colorectal cancer this past April. But what the beauty that came out of that is that I've been talking to my family for a long time, for several years now, about getting genetic testing and genetic counseling that I've already had to make sure that they get that as well. And it was my brother's untimely passing from stage 4 colorectal cancer that my family members decided to get screened for colon cancer, but also go and get tested. And it was a beautiful moment when they tested me and said, hey, walk us through our family history, walk us through who had cancer and when, because I tell them all the time, if caught early, it can be thrivership and survivorship. We've made amazing advances in research, amazing advances in care, and we just need to make sure that people have access and awareness to that care and that treatment. So without further ado, I turn the floor back over to our amazing team from the Cancer Center and Chicago CHEC. And thank you so much, Kimberly, and other advocates for giving me this time.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. As always, you're inspiring and you never disappoint. And so now I'm going to move forward and introduce you all to Dr. Pamela Ganshaw. Before I do that, of course, I do want to put that excellent plug in for all of the folks that have been behind the scenes helping us to plan this event. And our leadership has come directly from Dr. Pamela Ganshaw. Dr. Ganshaw, you have the floor.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Dr. Watson. I'm really excited today. As you mentioned, we've got a really exciting event and a theme that's really focused on survivors and thrivers and on the importance of communication and family history. So I want to welcome and thank you both, again, Chicago CHEC and the University of Illinois Cancer Center for sponsoring this event and for providing a team of staff that can support this virtual event, many of whom are in the background right now, making sure that everything runs smoothly and who have worked very hard for many weeks in preparing this event. So thank you, staff. Thank you also to the audience and to the panelists for giving us some of your precious time on this rainy summer Saturday morning as we slowly climb out of the COVID pandemic. I'm honored to be speaking to you all, and I feel really very fortunate that we were able to bring together a group of patients, caregivers, doctors, and researchers, and many of the local community organizations that provide support services to cancer patients throughout the Chicagoland area. Everyone here is dedicated in both small and large ways some of their time and their energy and their passion in improving the lives of those affected by cancer. And that brings us here together. Today, the focus of our event is to share some of those lived experiences with cancer, communicating together, to learn together, to remember that we are not alone in the cancer experience, and to hear each other's voices and visions to improve cancer care, inform cancer research, and find ways to promote wellness among ourselves and one another. Before I launch into my talk today, I just want to start out by briefly running through a quick map of the morning's events so everyone's aware of the agenda today, and I want to highlight some important information. So we're going to have 4 sessions. Each one is about 45 minutes to an hour. And these will involve a combination of lectures and interactive panels featuring first cancer survivors and their caregivers, second doctors and other members of the care team, and then researchers who are doing a wide variety of different types of cancer research from the community to the bench. And last, we will feature many of the community organizations to learn about the numerous support services that are available for cancer patients and their caregivers, not just during treatment, but through survivorship and to help promote wellness. During today's event, you will also be introduced to the concept of previvorship, and we have several sessions focused on the importance of knowing and communicating your family history of cancer on your own wellness and health and that of your family member. Importantly, we will also have 5-minute bio breaks between each session, during which we will have some brief wellness activities to try out, such as chair yoga and breathing exercises. And to keep everyone engaged throughout the event and hopefully to incentivize your participation for the entire morning, we'll have a $50 raffle at each break and up that ante to $100 at the end. So please stick with us and see if you're a winner. As was mentioned earlier, we will be taking questions from the audience for the panelists during the panel session. So please put those questions into the Q&A. We prefer that over the chat. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see something that says Q&A. Please put your questions there. And then finally, we will ask you at the end of each session just to complete a couple of brief survey questions that will come up in a poll format that lets us know how we're doing and what information you're gaining from today's event. For the remainder of my time this morning, I want to focus on the landscape of cancer survivorship to promote and achieve wellness. I know this is a bit dry, but before I really get into wellness, I want to start off with a few working definitions. The first is cancer survivorship as defined by the NIH and the NCI. And that is that cancer survivorship focuses on the health and well-being of a person with cancer from the time of diagnosis until the end of life, including physical, mental, emotional, social, and financial effects of cancer. The second definition that I just want to go through for just a minute is that of health and wellness. So people often use the terms health and wellness interchangeably. Although a person cannot have one and not the other, the two are really different concepts that are quite variable and their meanings are different. The WHO defines wellness as the optimal state of health of individuals and groups, whereas wellness is expressed as a positive approach to living. The primary difference between health and wellness is that health is the goal, while wellness is the active process of achieving it. You truly cannot have health without first achieving wellness. Wellness has a direct influence on overall health and is essential for living a robust, happy, and fulfilled life. While you cannot choose a state of your health, you can consciously choose wellness by living your life responsibly and taking proactive steps for your well-being. Wellness is an active process of growth and change to reach your fullest health and well-being. And wellness has many dimensions. I will spend the next few minutes reviewing them with you, and I ask you as I do to think about what you are doing or can do in each area to pave your own road to wellness. While I may use cancer-specific examples, these dimensions of wellness apply to anyone in the room looking to improve their health, not just cancer survivors, but also doctors, researchers, and caregivers who are working long hours and fighting in our own ways to get through this pandemic in good health. I also task you to engage with the community organizations who will be presenting at the end of this session, as they will have a wealth of free resources and wraparound services that address wellness in almost every dimension. One of the many dimensions of wellness that most of us are already aware of is physical wellness. This involves staying active in any way that you can. Start simply, like adding a short walk to your routine a couple times a week. It doesn't need to be a big change, and you don't need to wait till tomorrow or next week. You can start today by participating in some of the exercises that we have during our short breaks in the conference. The goal here is to find something that you enjoy and can do consistently, alone or with others if you need some accountability to stick with it. Remember that exercise stimulates a healthy mind and body. Physical wellness also includes improving your nutrition, eating a balanced diet and eating healthy, and drinking sufficient amounts of water, which may be different for different people. Increasing your water, not soda, not alcohol, but water, and increasing that water intake by a glass a day every week or every month can help you feel better and help you find the amount that's right for you. There are so many sources telling us what food is good or bad for your health, but the essentials of a healthy diet are one that is full of fresh vegetables and fruit, whole grains, and healthy proteins like fish, nuts, and beans. And of course, limiting added sugar, salt, and fried foods or unhealthy fat. And don't forget, keeping alcohol intake at a minimum. Beer, wine, or hard alcohol, all of those count, and keeping those in moderation. We don't know what amount is safe, if any, but probably no more than 3 drinks per week is a good start. Physical wellness also involves getting adequate sleep, turning off your phones and your television sets 30 minutes before bedtime, and reading a book or a magazine or doing a breathing exercise, which we'll teach you during some of these breaks. If you wake up in the middle of the night or are unable to fall asleep, resist that temptation to turn back on your electronics or your phone. This often stimulates your brain to stay awake and prevents you from falling back asleep naturally. Getting adequate sleep is important to achieving wellness. Intellectual well-being is a second dimension of wellness. Mental exercise and engagement through learning, through problem solving and creativity can keep you sharp and support intellectual wellness, which can give you a better attitude and promote a better attitude. Learning new things and challenging your mind can help avoid mental health problems like depression and anxiety later on. Many cancer patients who undergo chemotherapy experience chemobrain or chemofog and may benefit from cognitive rehabilitation, including mental exercises. So grab that crossword puzzle or that word search, or help your kids and your grandkids with their homework, and find ways to keep your brain active and sharp. Emotional well-being is a third dimension of wellness. Developing emotional wellness helps you build the skills to deal with stressful situations. Being aware of your own feelings, developing good self-esteem, and having empathy towards other feelings are all components of emotional wellness. Many cancer patients live with feelings of fear and trauma after a cancer diagnosis, including the fear of recurrence. These feelings can become overwhelming or paralyzing for some individuals, especially those with a prior history of depression or anxiety. Working with a counselor or a therapist may not make those fears go away, but they may help you develop strategies and skills to handle those feelings in a way that's less stressful and less emotionally exhausting and give you some of your energy back. Environmental wellness is something we don't talk about, but it's a fourth dimension of wellness. We don't talk about as much. And I think it's important to just spend a little bit of time talking about this. So awareness of the role that we play in the environment can improve the environment around us. Participating in maintaining and living a healthy physical environment free of hazards can promote wellness. This could involve small but important steps, such as tacking down your area rugs or removing tripping hazards in your home so you lower your chance of falling. Or it could be just starting to recycle or contributing to a cleaner neighborhood by picking up trash or even decluttering your home or your room. There are lots of options to think about, different ways that you can improve your environmental wellness, which can improve your overall sense of well-being. Social well-being or social wellness. This is one we talk a lot about. Social circles and support networks are so important to the overall well-being of a person. Relating, interacting, and contributing to a community by establishing relationships where you feel valued and others make you feel valued. Maintaining long-term relationships with families and friends keep a person happier and healthier. Connecting with family and friends by phone or by Zoom, or even in person if you've been vaccinated now. It's so important. Connecting with other cancer patients to give or receive support, or just to be with others who have shared an experience with cancer can help promote social well-being. And finally, there's spiritual wellness. Spiritual wellness does not necessarily imply religion or the faith of a person, but rather the search for meaning and purpose of human existence, which for some comes through or goes beyond religion. Developing compassion and caring, being forgiving to others, and having a purpose in life can all help you develop your spiritual wellness. This can also be achieved or enhanced through meditation, volunteer work, and spending time in nature. Different things may work for different people, And the goal is for you to find out what works for you, to explore and pursue your own spiritual well-being in whatever way you find fits best. In addition to these dimensions of wellness, remember to take care of your health needs and begin to own them if you haven't already. Monitoring and managing any chronic conditions you may have is important to achieving a healthy and active lifestyle. And you want to pair this with keeping regular appointments with your doctor to help you stay on track with your health and wellness, as well as identifying your risk for new cancers and keeping up with any screening and prevention tests. Check in with your doctors between appointments if you have new or changing symptoms. And reach out to several of your doctors on your care team. Don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion. If you feel communication with your doctor is not working, consider finding another doctor. Every doctor isn't right for every patient, and it is important for you to find ones that you connect with and who meet your needs. Speaking of doctors and care teams, I want to end by just spending a minute or two talking about the unique cancer survivorship services that we offer through the UI Cancer Center at our Miles Square Health Center. This unique program provides team-based care, which comprehensively addresses the complex needs of cancer survivors with a focus on promoting health and wellness across the many dimensions that I just spoke about. We now have over 200 cancer survivors under our care. While the care that we provide is individualized to the need of each cancer patient in our program, all patients receive cancer surveillance as well as risk assessment and personalized screening recommendations for new or other cancers. We monitor and manage treatment side effects, and we have a proactive focus on preventive health care. We also co-manage any other medical conditions that you have with your other doctors. We provide a lot of care coordination and appointment scheduling to take that burden off of you. And we link patients to cancer survivorship resources that can help promote wellness. Our survivorship care team works alongside your other care providers to ensure a comprehensive approach is provided for all of your care needs and to promote the health and wellness as you establish your new normal. As you look at this diagram, think about what types of doctors and what services you need or want to wrap around yourself. Who do you want on your care team and what your care needs are now and in the future? And as you do that, consider adding a cancer survivorship expert to your care team. I hope that through today's event, we give you some of the knowledge and skills that can empower you to take charge of your health and wellness, and that you will pay it forward by inspiring your loved ones to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ganshaw. One of the things I saw in your presentation that sticks out are all the things about wellness, right? All those different sections. Remember, everything is recorded, so you don't have to rush to try to write things down. You can re-review all of these slides a little bit later. But just remember, it's a comprehensive step-by-step approach. So if you've got fruits and vegetables down, but you don't quite have that 5-mile walk down yet, it's okay. I mean, this is a part of the new way we're going to take care of ourselves as survivors. And so thank you again, Dr. Ganshaw, for your commitment and the passion that you put into helping us plan this event and all the great work that you do at the survivorship program. And now I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Deborah Mance, who will be speaking to us about survivorship. Dr. Mance.
Yes, thank you, Kimberly, so much. And thank you, Dr. Ganshaw, for that wonderful presentation. It's so important for our survivors and everyone to pay attention to their wellness. So as Kimberly said, I want to talk to everyone today about pre-survivorship. I work as a provider at UICC at Miles Square Health Center in taking care of cancer survivors. And I am so thrilled that I'm seeing a bunch of my patients here this morning. You're all such an inspiration to me and to our whole team. But today I'll talk about, again, pre-survivorship. It's a little different because I have a genetic risk. A pre-survivor is someone who has high risk of cancer, developing cancer, but they've outlived that risk. So having predisposition from something like a family history or a gene mutation, that increases one's risk for cancer. And in 2012, I was diagnosed with a mutation in BRCA1. This gene mutation means that I have a very high risk for developing breast and ovarian cancer. And the reason I was tested is my sister. my sister was diagnosed at age 45 with aggressive breast cancer. And early breast cancer like this triggers genetic testing. And she found out that she carried a BRCA1 mutation, which runs in the family, which will be talked about a little bit later today in more depth. So seeing my sister go through this journey and go through cancer treatment, and her positivity and optimism throughout it was really inspiring to this. So I took this new information as kind of an opportunity to take charge of my health, take action, and be able to improve my own health and wellness, and decided for myself to have risk reducing surgeries. And these weren't easy decisions to make. But about 9 years ago, I had my breast removed to significantly reduce my risk of breast cancer. Women struggle with this decision, but I really didn't want to wake up every day wondering if today is the day I'm going to get cancer. No one tells you how hard it is to get sleep in the hospital, but I felt much better after going through my risk reducing mastectomy to reduce that risk. Now, people had different types of reactions to this. Some didn't understand my decision. People that I didn't expect had trouble understanding, but this decision was for me and for my benefit and my wellness. And I didn't let others' opinions affect me with this. So I fully recovered from that and life resumed. And 2 years ago, actually tomorrow, I had my ovaries and uterus removed when I was 35 years old, as is recommended for a BRCA1 mutation. Being postmenopausal in your 30s is quite an experience. And I never really imagined managing hot flashes at this time in my life. But having made these decisions and going forward in my life and thinking about my sister's perspective and sister's experience, and really it brought me a great deal of peace and a great deal of fulfillment in being able to manage all this, and now having those opportunities again to bring this to others. And I have had the privilege of working with Dr. Ganschow and all of the other great speakers today, and the community partners and organizations like Wellness House, Intermittent Angels and Force, which you'll hear about from later. Importantly, working with and for our cancer survivors at Miles Square Health Center. My path and my background has really brought me where I am today. My sister will take a lot of credit for that. But it's great to be involved with everyone who's at this conference in everyone's journey to move forward, and again, to help empower individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mance. It is a brave move to be able to understand the history of the history of cancer in one's family, and to be the person that takes that first step in creating a little bit more longevity in their lives. It's a brave move to get all of those surgeries done to prevent cancer for yourself in down the road. And so I'm just in awe of all providers like yourself who can make those hard decisions. You're still a part of the team, man. I'm glad that you got your own title, but you're in this thing with us and you're in it to win it. And so thank you for your presentation. And I believe now what we're about to do is show you a few of the survivor and caregiver vignettes. Am I correct?
My name is Maurice Davis, and I am 68 years old. I'm a cancer survivor. I've been 7 years now since my diagnosis, and today I'm cancer free. It was one of the most scariest moments of my life. I didn't know what to think of, who to turn to. I did a lot of praying, and I relied upon my wife, Holly, for inspiration and guidance during that time. My doctor had done another procedure on me, and I trusted him, but I did get a second opinion. And after all of the after knowing as much as I could about the different options that I had, I decided to go with the robotic prostatectomy. And to date, I am cancer free. And I know as men, it's hard to discuss issues as sensitive as this, but we need to be aware of what's going on with our body. We need to get tested and stay informed on what is going on with us. And I hope that this will encourage people to go and get regular checkups. And
hi, my name is Brenda Russell, and I have been living with ovarian cancer since my diagnosis of October 31, 2017. Yeah, that was quite a Halloween surprise. I have been with this experience, as I call it, not a journey, with the support of my family and friends and loved ones. And I think the three parts of my story that have meant the most to me start with my faith, my personal faith in God. I think for me, it has been the standard. It has kept me grounded, and it has kept me going throughout, recognizing that what killed my mother, what my sister had also suffered, is not necessarily going to take me out. And my doctor, when I first asked her, which is the question every cancer patient asks, is how long do I have? She said, I think we should think of this as a chronic illness, like diabetes. And it took me off the ledge that I was on to start thinking, oh, okay, all right. I'm not going to plan my funeral tomorrow. I'm going to try to figure out what I have to do to make it to the next day. And that has been my prescription. So the second thing I would say is to share the story. I shared this with, of course, my immediate family, but I shared it with people at work. And I'm a lawyer by training, and I have a healthcare graduate degree. So I'm thinking about HIPAA and all that. I just push all that stuff aside. You know what? I'm going to tell everybody, because it's not my fault that I got cancer. You try to connect the dots as to why something happened. This is not one of those connect the dots things. If I had done this, then that wouldn't have happened. Or if I'd done that, that wouldn't have happened. You can't do that with cancer. It sneaks up on you and it gets you. And you're not to blame. And I especially hold that out for people who have lung cancer. People look at them like, oh, you smoked and you shouldn't have. Forget that. So that's the second thing, is I shared it with everybody, because that took the burden off of me of feeling like I had something to do with it. But the third thing that I think has really undergirded me and kept me going through all of this is to really understand that a lot of cancer is about stress. And I just decided to let stuff go. I decided to forgive people. I decided to overlook things. I decided to survive in spite of things. And I just didn't let things get to me. COVID was tough because there were people who wouldn't wear a mask and who didn't think it was real and all of that. I said, you know what? I can't be responsible for them. I can only be responsible for me. So, I masked up. I wore a mask that said cancer patient. And then I got vaccinated. I feel better, but I still can't control what anybody else does, and you never could. What do I wish that I knew or could have done differently? Been born 20 years later. I think that the advancements in cancer are such that in 20 years, this will be something that people accept like a cold, or accept like diabetes, or accept like, anything else. But at the core, what gets me through every day is understanding and knowing that this much is true. I can only do what I can do today. I don't have next week. I don't have next year. And guess what? I never did. It's okay. I can live today as though it's the most important day of my life. And that's what I treasure. Thank you.
So my name is Raquel Tellez, but everyone calls me Kelly. I am an acute lymphoblastic leukemia survivor. I have been a survivor for more years than I have not. My journey with survivorship has been long and hard. At the age of 11, while leukemia had robbed me of parts of my childhood, I had always believed that everything happened for a reason, even if I didn't know what that reason was. The particular mindset really got tested as I entered my 19th year of life. At 19, I had just finished my first semester at university with 17 credits, a 3.8 GPA, an amazing group of friends, a best friend that was unlike any friendship I had had prior, and I had just joined a sorority. I had found my life after just being the girl with cancer. But all of that didn't last long as I braced myself for the tsunami that was about to ravage my life for much longer than I would be in treatment. As I entered the eye of the storm, I was told that this treatment would be stronger and harder than the last time. And in the end, I would end up receiving a stem cell transplant. This time I got tested in more ways than one. While I was being treated for a childhood cancer, I was an adult with full comprehension of what was going on around me, and I didn't like it. My life was almost lost in a tsunami. I felt that when the storm passed, I would be okay. But as I picked up the rubble left behind, I found osteopenia, infertility, graft versus host disease that manifested in eye problems, GI problems, and excruciating joint pain. Honestly, the rubble that I found just didn't seem to end, but what I was looking for and what I didn't find was my faith. That 11-year-old who believed that everything happened for a reason was gone. I was about to embark on a journey that I didn't ask for. This journey was filled with anger, sadness, and led to destructive decisions. And I started to take the rubble and try to rebuild something that wasn't meant to be rebuilt, but rather what I needed to do was rebuild something new altogether. While it could resemble the old, it was never going to look the same. And that was the turning point for me. When I realized that my life was never going to be the same and that was okay, things started to change. It wasn't that I didn't forget what I had just been through or the aftermath I was now in the middle of, but the journey was so much more than finding the pieces to rebuild it. It was the little things that really helped me find me again. It was a smile on my face when I got up in the morning because I had found love, even if that love didn't work out. It was the I love yous in my grandfather's broken English as I brought him his favorite fruit. And it was my grandmother's distinct laugh, or even the way that my cat nudged my hand when she wanted love. I was finding life again. My health issues are never going to go away. They are the concrete footprints that cancer left behind, but it doesn't have to be everything about me. You see, I am crafty, tenacious, loving, and some would say too kind. But the best part, I'm a survivor.
Good morning. My name is Katie Lane. I am 42 years old and I live in Chicago, Illinois. When I was 34, I was diagnosed with ocular melanoma in my right eye. It's actually a very rare eye disease, especially in young folks like I was at the time. That basically means that I've been 8 years cancer-free this summer, and I'm very happy to be part of this survivorship panel. Wanted to talk to you folks a bit about my journey, kind of what it was like, the treatments that I went through, and really what got me through the tough times. Interesting thing about having a tumor in your eye is that you can't actually biopsy it or chemo it the way you can, other sort of cancers. So my treatment was called brachytherapy. It was basically a nickel-sized radioactive plaque that got stuck in the back of my head for a week. It was tough. I had an eye patch over my eye. I used to laugh and say that I was a pirate. But the fact of the matter is I was really alone because I was radioactive and I couldn't spend time with, my husband at the time or my cats because I didn't want to zap them. When the plaque got taken out, I had a gigantic shiner. So I rocked that eye patch for a couple more weeks until it went away. And, the tumor continued to shrink. Something about ocular melanoma is that if they do brachytherapy and the tumor just goes away like that, it means it's already metastasized somewhere in your body. So I've been fortunate for the past 8 years that every time I see my doctors at UIC, my tumor gradually shrinks. It started off as 9 millimeters and it's now just under 3. This past month, I actually had my yearly scans for metastasis and everything is clear. So I'm very excited to say that. Kind of what I wanted to share with you about your journey or what you're going through is you are really not alone. Sometimes I feel, having had cancer, that I was kind of like a random buoy in the middle of the ocean and I was all by myself. But you're not alone. I really did get through the majority of, my treatments, the majority of my anxiety with really close friends. Unfortunately, my folks live on the East Coast, so they've not been able to join me on my journey. But I can't tell you the amount of, friends, neighbors, landlords, that would drive me to my appointments and hold my hand. Use your circle of people. Don't push them away. I was actually guilty of that. I do that just about every year. Every time I get my scans, I get really nervous and I start being frustrated to people. Don't do that, because the people in your life that care about you and want to support you are there. Really just appreciate your community, your friends. Lean on other folks that may have had cancer in the past. There are a couple really great organizations out there that I've been part of that really just bring us all together as a community of survivors and fighters. Reach out to the folks at the Wellness House, reach out to the folks at Emmerman Angels. We're a big family, us cancer folks, and we're going to get through this together. One of the things I will say about the treatment that I had is that it's not glamorous. I felt really ugly with that eye patch and that shiner. And I'm sure that, there are some times like you don't feel pretty because this thing is inside of you. You are pretty because of your heart, not what you look like, not the hair on your head or the lack thereof or the shiner. Your heart is what makes you beautiful, and your heart is what makes you strong. And I just wanted to share that part of my journey. I'm very blessed to be part of this. I'm very blessed to be 8 years cancer-free. And if you need me, you can reach out at any time. So thank you, UIC. Thank you, everyone. Be blessed, be patient, and be kind to yourself. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bernice Kenner. I was diagnosed with breast cancer stage 3 in 2002. What helped me through the breast cancer was my family, my kids, and other friends. I would like to see cancer improve a lot by a lot of females, when they hear the word cancer, they get scared and think it's the end of the world. It is not the end of the world. Don't ever think that. All you really need to do is think positive. Don't ever think negative, and you don't need no negativity around you. Do what you was doing before you had the cancer and continue to do it. You know, it's a lot of research going on, and you think you need to talk to someone, find someone who's been through cancer or is going through cancer so they can help you with it and become a buddy, become a partner so you can help them and they can also help you. But remember, it's not the end of the world because you hear that word, I have cancer. It's not the end of the world. Don't you ever think that. Because number one, first, we are winners. We do not give up. So you always have to remember that. Just remember those words. We do not give up. And I would like for everyone, take your daughter, sister, grandmama, auntie, take them all to the clinic. Get tested because you really need this test to see what's going on with your body. You know, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. I made 20 years. I went back to the doctor and found that I had stage 2 in the left and the other breast was aggressive. But guess what? I told the doctors because it's aggressive. I'm more aggressive. Don't nobody run his body but me. We have to get a hold of cancer and do what we need to do. We got to all come together and stomp cancer down because it's mostly in the Black neighborhood and we can get rid of it. Not just saying because it's Black, Latinos, anybody. We can take cancer by the head and get rid of it. We're going to stomp cancer down. We're going to all come together and we're going to have a big party. And remember, you also have 2 birthdays. The birthday that you was born on and the date that you came, that you was diagnosed with cancer. I did 20 years and I'm planning to do 40 more years. So I hope you were around. Join me. I would love to hear from you all. If you can't get a hold to me, you can catch up with some of my doctors. And first and foremost, I had the greatest team of doctors. And I would like to thank Susan Holmes because she was my favorite doctor. She's not here, but guess what? I still got a great team of doctors. And I would like to thank them, thank you, and you have a very blessed day.
Hello, my name is Bento Soares, and I serve as head of the Department of Cancer Biology and Pharmacology, and a senior associate dean for research at the Peoria campus of the University of Illinois College of Medicine. I was a caregiver for cancer patients twice. First, for my late wife, Vera, who had a very aggressive cartilage tumor that ended up taking her life in 14 months after intensive treatment that included 3 major surgeries. Subsequently, I remarried to Karen, who herself was a cancer survivor. Sadly, soon after, she developed metastatic disease, went through 5 years of intensive treatment, and ended up succumbing to the disease as well. When I look back and I think of what's most needed for cancer survivors, I think of emotional support, community support, but emotional support is absolutely necessary. But when I think of well-being of the cancer patient, I think of that as not being divorced from the well-being of the caregivers. And that includes both the partner caregiver, but also the healthcare professionals. Because without the proper skills for emotional awareness, emotional balance, resilience, compassion, healthcare professionals are at the risk of burning out and not being able to be there for us when we most need them. The cancer journey offers both challenges and opportunities. The challenges are so many: pain, physical change, anxiety in anticipation of test results, fear of recurrence, so many more. But the opportunities are also invaluable. And I'm referring to the wisdom that arises through that suffering. Something we can't acquire by attending lectures or reading books. This embodied experience, this wisdom that enables us to treasure life in a different way, to recognize the preciousness of every moment, to recognize the transient nature of our life, the wisdom that enables us to savor simple moments of joy, moments that before we might not even have noticed. The wisdom that enables us to sharpen our focus, direct our attention and actions in ways that are much better aligned with our values, with that which we find meaningful in life. There's another lesson I learned that I would like to share with you, and that is that the sooner the palliative care team and the hospice team get involved, the better. Their involvement doesn't necessarily need to mean that the outcome is not going to be favorable, but they bring expertise that is complementary to that of the remainder of the care team. For example, they may be able to handle chronic pain better than anyone. Last but not least, take care of yourself. As a caregiver, you need self-compassion. Think of what we are told when we're about to take off in the plane. Put your oxygen masks first before you can help others. Without self-compassion, without giving ourselves the kindness and the compassion that we need, we don't have enough reserves. We don't have enough fuel to care for our loved ones the way we so much want to. So sometimes the most compassionate action we can take is self-compassion. Because through self-compassion, we can be a loving presence for our loved ones. So thank you and take care.
There is a lot to learn from our stories. And I think sometimes for people who are not survivors, that they often see our stories just as a story, as a blip in time. But for most of us, survivorship is enduring not just the treatment, but the side effects, the late effects. And these are all the things that encompass a survivor. And so that's why we sort of try to shy away from calling them cancer stories and begin to give them the definition of lived experiences. And so at this point, I'd like for everyone who was on a part of the vignette to come forward. We want to make sure that we thank every person that was available to record their lived experience for us today. But for today, we're going to have on the first panel just the survivors, and that would be Brenda Russell, Raquel, Bernice, and Katie. And so, hey guys, take yourselves off mute, because this is going to just be an interactive conversation, right? Because we all are in this really cool club. We know the real deal, right?
It's survivors, baby. Best club
hello,
ever.
hello. There's a proud sort of square your shoulders back when you can say you got through chemo, right? Yes, that diagnosis sat you on your behind. Yes, you were shocked. Yes, you were scared. But at some point, you had to get with it, right? You had to sit in that infusion chair and pull up your big girl panties, as they would say, and start this process, right?
Yeah.
So we all know what that feels like. We have been through. Some of us have had recurrences. Some of us have had secondary cancers, like myself. And yet I still able to take those experiences and move and take the experience of my first cancer and say, as you said, Bernice, this ain't fixing to take me out.
That's right.
Not today. I have been here, done that, and I'm going to make it through the second diagnosis and treatment as well. So we have a few questions because we just want the audience to know more about your lived experience, but there are oncologists on our line. There are researchers that are a part of the discussion, right? And there are community partners. And oftentimes they don't get that opportunity. Rarely do researchers get an opportunity to see folks like y'all. But every day they are passionate about finding the cure. But do they get that opportunity to talk to you? So this is your time to shine, and all of the questions and all of the responses that we're going to have in this very, unfortunately, short time for us all to talk. Okay? So let me get to these questions. All right. First and foremost, everybody's going to always want to know, what did you do to stay positive during treatment, after treatment? We could just go round robin. Bernice, you tell us first. What did you do to stay positive?
What did I do? What did I do to stay positive? I communicated with my family, my kids, loved ones, and I just did everything I wanted to do. I never stopped doing anything at all. I continued to do everything, including that crazy. I just had fun with it. I just really had fun, and you got to keep your spirit up. You got to keep that smile on your face. Because after all, I done said it once and I'm going to say it again. We are survivors. We do not give up. So don't everyone never give up. Please don't. Don't ever
Girl,
give up.
don't ever give up.
Don't ever
That's
give
right.
up.
Don't ever give up. Because once you give up, go home and lay in the bed and all that, that's when that devil sneak in, and we don't want to sneak in.
He has no room here.
That's
Katie,
right.
what did you do?
No room in my house.
So one of my biggest passions is I love to cook. I work for a couple of really swanky restaurants here in Chicago. So to keep my mind off of being sick is I would cook like a crazy woman. And I would plate like a Michelin-starred chef and be all swanky. And I would try to remain positive. I am still legally blind in my right eye because of my cancer. So sometimes it's funky, but I would cook like a crazy woman. And I would feed my friends, and I would feed my neighbors, and I would feed anyone that wanted to eat with me, because it was cathartic to actually cook and give someone the love that I put on a plate. So
dig it. Raquel, being a young person, being a teenager, man, how did you keep yourself staying positive through all of that?
So I will say that at 19, I was very, very angry because my life had gotten taken away from me not once, but twice. And especially because I was so young, and those like crucial parts where I really like the foundation of who I was really like destroyed me. And so I will say that first, I think that for anyone who's here and is in that space where they're angry or sad, like it's okay. It's okay to be there. I think when you're there, you find what is it that you need to survive and really kind of get to that positive place. Cause I think those pieces of you that you try to avoid, I think they'll help you get to that positive space. Now, I will say that once I got past that, um, that I really leaned into the things that I was passionate about, similar to Katie. I love crafting, and like that's my jam. Like I just that's what I love to do. That's something that kind of distracted me. I learned how to knit while I was going through chemotherapy. It kept my fingers busy because, you know, you go through chemotherapy and then you're sitting on a couch, you know, there's only so much TV you can watch. So I kept my hands busy. But I also, one of the other things is I really leaned into my family. I come from a culture where family is my everything, and a lot of whom are watching me right now, but I really leaned into them, you know, and they were phenomenal in the way that they, you know, anytime that I had to go to the hospital or I was hospitalized, like one of them was always by my side. And, you know, they helped distract me even, you know, my father made me, you know, my favorite soup. My brother distracted me with, you know, a TV show that became like our TV show that we watched every single time that he came to visit me. But and those are just two of the things, but, you know, I really leaned into that, and really just allowed them to be there for me, even though you know, sometimes you just don't want to be around people because you're sick, but I really kind of pushed past that and said, you know, I really need you guys. So that's two of the things that kind of helped me get past.
Well, thank you, Raquel. I know when my first diagnosis, guys, I was binge watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians because that came on the day of my I think it was every Thursday was when I had my chemo treatment. So all I had was the energy to sit there and watch that. And that was my favorite Ratchet TV. Brenda, my T.O. sister.
Yes, right,
Sister.
Right, exactly.
What do you do to stay positive, sis?
Well, you know, it's interesting you talk about what you've been through, but you say that with such a smile on your face. You are actually an inspiration, Kim. All that you do, and since I've met you, you've been such a star. I feel that I got into texting people more. I just, you know, I was sitting there and I didn't want to like being on the phone. So I started texting, and I started texting uplifting messages to people, and they started like being like really emotional about it and very happy. And so I thought I could do this regularly. So I started getting into the habit of reaching out to people and saying, you're a star. You're going to make it today. And they were just so taken aback, and they're like, but you've got cancer. And I said, well, yeah, because I got cancer. I know I can tell you can make it, you know. It's like, look at what I got to do. You can do this. And it really was like light bouncing off a building, really reflected back to me all this positive energy of love and support. And it took me out of my space of feeling that things were so bad, because I actually did encounter people who had some really rough times. And my ovarian cancer support group at Gilda's Club kind of etched the corners of that for me, because there were a group of women who had not just one type of cancer, but sometimes 2 or 3 diagnoses, who had a family member who had 2 or 3 diagnoses, and they also had cancer. And so you realize, in the whole scheme of things, you're special, but you're not the only special person in the world. There are a lot of people, and at one point during my diagnosis, I had to be in a wheelchair, and it, you know, every door was full, you know, and I recognized that there were people who had to live like this with no change in sight, no possibility of a clinical trial to open that door for them when they're in a wheelchair. And I said, you know what, you can handle this. So,
Well, ladies, I know we have just such a finite amount of time, and we want to get to the caregivers as well. And so I'm going to ask you very succinctly, because I had like 3 questions for us, but through everyone's responses, we sort of hit on all of them. I want you in 60 seconds to tell me, what is it that you want people to know about a cancer diagnosis? I know, Bernice, you said it's not the end of the life, end of life. I know, Brenda, you said, it's not your fault. But how can we really in this moment share with people that it ain't, it's no fun ride. Let's not get it twisted, right? And yes, there is this thing called a new normal, and we all adjust in our own time. And so for me, if I'm going to answer that question, I'm going to say you are enough. Everything that happens to you, when it happens to you, is okay. If I'm ugly today, bitter tomorrow, walking around like Jesus wept the next day, it's okay for me to have every one of those emotions, because I am dealing with a possibly life-threatening disease. And it is happening to me and my body. So I can be and do whatever I want when I want. So Raquel, what would be the 60-second thing you want everybody to know?
I am going to say that wherever you're at, I think one of the biggest things is that we, at least in my case, you're not feeling the best, or something happens where you really like feeling ill, and you get the diagnosis, and then you're thrown into treatment, like you're really thrown into the deep end. So I think wherever you're at is okay. And I think that really seek out the people that are your family, whether that's blood family or friends and family, whatever that looks like. Really seek out a community. It could be a community of survivors, like Brenda said. You will be, I won't say that you will be okay, because sometimes you won't be okay. And sometimes you will be okay. But I will say that take it one step at a time. And that's really all you can do, because from 1 second to the next, your chemo doses may change, or, some things may change where they may adjust your treatment, or, you had planned to go to a party, but now you're doubled over a toilet. Just take it one step at a time, and you'll get through it. And, also just allow yourself to be patient with yourself, and everything will turn out okay.
Thank you, Raquel. Bernice.
Well, to that, I would say, still be yourself. Don't ever change. Keep that smile on your face. And remember, we don't give up. Whatever you was doing before, continue to do it. And keep that beautiful smile, and you are a beautiful person. Don't ever let nobody tell you you ugly. I know I had ugly days and bad days, but guess what? I'm still gorgeous.
Yes, I was fabulous all the way through.
Beautiful.
Fabulous.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Keep it up.
Thank you, Bernice.
Keep going to your groups. Thank you.
Katie.
Just echoing everything they both said. Like, there have been days that I felt completely ugly and alone, and sick and tired of being sick and tired. So my best advice is, we're not alone. I said that in my video. We're a family.
We are a tribe, are we not?
We're
Yes.
Vigilant, powerful
We're a
tribe.
tribe, and
we are.
we've got each other's backs. And I don't want to say I'm glad that I have been a cancer survivor, but I'm glad to be part of this tribe.
And Brenda, your
Everyone
last
has,
60 seconds.
everyone has said it so beautifully, but we only have, one moment at a time. It's not even the full day. So just get through this moment and don't pressure yourself. You'll be different at 5 o'clock than you are at 2. You'll be different at 10 o'clock than you are at 8. And it's all right.
It's
So
all
just
right.
live through it. Just breathe.
Thank you, ladies, so much. And thank you to all of the folks who did vignettes for us, and to all of the people who are on the line who do know cancer survivors, and for previvors as well. Just thank you for your support, for listening, to understand that our lived experiences change from day to day, from year to year. And
Minute to minute.
anxiety is real,
All the
and
time.
we will
Yes.
freak out on you 10 years later from a diagnosis. So get ready for it. So thank you all so much. I'm going to ask my caregivers to join me now. Dr. Suarez, we have some questions in the chat, and I'm going to just give them to you right off the bat. You did mention it a bit, but as a caregiver, how did you take care of yourself?
Yeah, I don't know that at the time that I was going through being a caregiver, that I had all the resources available to me that now I feel I have, because I felt that it was it required so many skills, but really attending to our emotional well-being is so important. And I think that over the years, this has motivated me to learn. And nowadays, I'm a teacher of programs that were developed exactly for that purpose. So there's mindful self-compassion, there's cognitively based compassion training, cultivating emotional balance, and these are all programs that we can I offer in the medical school, and through the cancer center here. I think we have the opportunity to begin to make some of these programs available. I think that it's so important that we keep in mind that without caring for ourselves, we are not going to be able to be our best to those we so much want to care for. So, the self-compassion practice is not selfish, quite the contrary. And I think that it is very important that we develop these skills, and for all caregivers, partner caregivers, and for physicians as well. One thing that I did witness is how very experienced physicians really struggle transitioning from a time when they can still prescribe to a time when there isn't really any treatment that can be offered. But that's so far from saying that there's nothing else for them to do. And to have the skill to remain present it requires preparedness, emotional balance, compassion training, because sometimes all you can do is to hold a hand and to be there and show that you care. And that has such a tremendous impact.
Well, Bento, I know just from your story that something is a gift inside of you to be able to do this twice, to able to be that caregiver. It ain't in everybody. I mean, we have loved ones who cannot handle this diagnosis. As much as they want to, I don't know if they're in some sort of headspace, but they literally can't be there. And that has to be okay, right? In my case, I was a single parent, and my twins were 11 years old. And unfortunately, their cerebral cortex was all about me And what else are you going to do for me? And it was not about their mom having cancer or any of the things that I was going through treatment. So I had to wear those both hats. I still had to be mom and I still had to be in treatment. And so everybody's situation is not going to be picture perfect. Some people are going to have very loving caregivers and other people are not. And at the end of the day, you still got to get through those treatments. And you're going to have to extend grace to people who don't get it. At the end of the day, it's happening to you. And so it's nice that you have support, but unfortunately it's not necessary because only you're going to sit in that infusion chair. So Dr. Bento, thank you so much. And thank you to all of the other panelists today. We're going to move forward. There are some survey questions that we have for everyone, and they're going to appear on your screen. If you would go ahead now and read the questions and go ahead and answer them, and then hit that submit button for us, we'd really appreciate it. All right, and so from here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the quickest break. But first, we're going to introduce you to Vanya Perry from the Wellness House. We're going to do the chair yoga, and we're going to introduce our first raffle winner. I am definitely going to give my shout out to the Wellness House because I love everything that y'all do, from chair yoga to mindful meditation, to know that all those services are right there inside of the Mile Square Health Center, and that they're free and they're accessible. And these are given by folks who understand us as cancer survivors. So Ms. Perry, without further ado.
Hi, good morning, everybody. As Kimberly said, my name is Vanya Perry. I am one of the oncology exercise specialists on staff at the Wellness House. You can find any one of us at any given time, whether you need some type of consult in conjunction with your oncologist, your physical therapist, your psychiatrist or psychologist. We are there to help you. So I teach a couple of the beginner chair yoga classes that are very impactful for cancer survivors and those dealing with cancer as well, especially when they're going through chemo and radiation. If you are a caregiver, it's also important that you self-care for yourself. You are undertaking a huge responsibility, and the participant, as we call our cancer patients, participants truly appreciates the time and love that you give to them. So at any given time, I don't care whether you're getting out of the bed or you're sitting at a desk or you're on the sofa, you can incorporate some of these basic chair yoga moves. I'm going to move back just a little bit so you all can make sure you see me fully and hear me. I've got a pretty big mouth, so it's never too difficult to hear me most times. So I try to keep it light with everybody. We are all in this together. I am a servant for everyone. So what I would love for you to do right now is you're sitting straight up in your chair. We've been sitting here for about an hour and a half or so, hour and 15. Put those hands right on top of those thighs. We're going to stand straight and tall, sit straight and tall, and we want to bring a calm over our bodies. Sometimes I have some music playing in the background. Sometimes I need complete silence. Depending on what you are doing, you can adjust to your preferences. So what we're going to do, we're going to inhale nice and deeply, and then exhale. When we inhale, we want to fill those lungs. So your tummy will go out when you inhale. And then when you exhale, everything deflates. Let's take that inhale again one more time and blow it out. And what we're going to do right now are some chair yoga moves that you can do sitting straight and tall. We're going to extend those arms all the way out on either side. You're going to take your head. We're going to do what's called warrior two. So you're taking your head and you're turning it to the right. We're going to hold it right there. Inhale, flip those hands up to the side and hold it right there. We're stretching out those ligaments in our arms, making them alive again. We're going to press in our hands back to our shoulders. This way we're opening up our chest and stretching out our pectoral muscles. All right. You're going to push it out again. Lower those hands. And then this time we're going to flip our hands up. All right. We're going to flip our hands all the way up to the top. I know I'm cut off here. I apologize for that. But this is what's called warrior one. We're going to then do what's called a half fold. You're taking your arms to the front. And if you are able, you will take them to the back. Our chest is leaning to front, chin in front as well. We are in what's called warrior three. You'll feel your back extending out as you do this. If you have problems doing that, make sure you lower your arms or hold on to the side of your chair. We're going to keep it right here for a couple of more seconds and then inhale all the way back up to warrior one. We're going to put those arms down now, and you're going to turn your head to the left for warrior two again. We're going to repeat what we did on the right side. Flip those hands up and then bring our hands into the shoulders, opening up our chest nice and wide. Excellent. Let's push it all the way back out again like we're knocking down those walls and barriers. We're going to flip the hands up, take it all the way back up again to warrior one. As we look at the sun, or in this case, the rain this morning, we're folding it back over, bringing those arms back nice and softly to warrior three. Once again, inhale up, coming all the way up to the top, taking the hands down, and we're bringing them to the sides as we complete those yoga poses. Another basic chair yoga pose you can do is trunk rotations. Whether you're sitting in the bed or lying in the bed for a long time, again, you've been still, we want you to try to keep your core active, all right? The core is what sustains us, and we need to be able to support our legs and our bodies here. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to do a trunk rotation. You're going to take your hands, stack them on top of one another. I call it an I Dream of Jeannie pose. And what we're going to do is we're going to twist our trunk over to the right. You go to where you are comfortable. It might not be all the way right. It might be at a quarter of the position, but you're going to go right here. You exhale and then inhale, coming back to the center. We're going to do that one more time. Inhale, turning to the right and hold it. And then exhale, coming to the center. Let's go to the left now. Inhale as we turn to the right, trying to sit nice and tall, keeping your posture straight, and exhale, coming back to the center. One more time, we're going to rotate our trunk over to the left, holding it right there, and then exhale as we bring it to the center, lower those arms to the side. So as you're doing your trunk rotations, you may begin to hear some of those discs, the lower back, the lumbar spine, or your thoracic spine. You'll feel the loosening of those discs as you do your twist. One more stretch we're going to do. We're going to keep our hands on the side. I want you to take your right hand. You're going to fan it all the way up, take it to the top, and then stretch it over to the side. We're going to inhale up and lower it back to the side of your thigh. Let's lift up the left arm. Inhale to the top, raising it all the way and stretching nice and strong over to the right. Inhale, bringing it down to the side. The last one, I want you to take your hands, you're gonna fan them all the way up to the top. We're gonna inhale as we do that, and then fold those hands all the way down, bringing those hands to the tops of your thighs. I'm gonna turn my chair so that you can see me. I want you to take your chin. Inhale as you take that chin up, arching your back, and then you're gonna roll the back in a camel position and stretching the mid to lower back again. Let's inhale again, taking that chin up and to the top. Exhale as we're curving that back. One more time, inhale it up, holding it nice and strong, and then curving the back for the final stretch. We're gonna bring our head back up to the center and keep our hands down to the side, palms are up. Let's do what's called a fan, as I did previously, and we'll conclude. We're inhaling up, nice and deep, and exhaling, pushing that air down to the floor. Let's flip our hands up again. Inhale, and cross the hands and exhale, pushing the air down. And for the last stretch, inhale up. At this point, you're gonna hold your hands all the way open on either side, chest is open. We're going to salute the sun wherever it is in the universe right now. We're bringing our hands up to the top as we salute the sun, give honor and glory to God. We're bringing our hands down into prayer position, and I bow to you. Namaste. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope the break gave you a little bit of motivation for the next round.
I'm already super relaxed. Thank you so much for that. Oh, good grief. All right. All right. Beverly, it's up to you now to introduce and tell us who our first raffle winner is.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Welcome everyone once more. We would have raffle prizes throughout, and there will be opportunities throughout the event, but you have to stay on to win. So we have 3 chances to win $50 a MasterCard gift card and $100. So I would announce our first winner. Our first winner is Hector Tellez. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Hector Tellez. Last name T-E-L-L-E-Z. Hector, we will be sending you an email shortly today or tomorrow or Monday with information about your gift card. Congratulations. And I'll hand the mic over to Dr. Pamela Ganshaw to be able to facilitate our next section, which is on caregiver.
Great. Thank you, Beverly. And thank you, Vanya. Even 5 minutes of yoga just puts me in a better mind frame and makes me feel rejuvenated. So thanks for that wonderful break. So we're going to move on to session 2 now. And this is our provider session. It's a little bit shorter. We do need to make up a little bit of time here, but I'm just really so glad that we were able to give a lot of time to our survivors, to hearing their stories, and to having a panel. So thank you, survivors. We have 2 presentations, and then that will be followed by a panel of care providers, and we'll open it up for questions in the chat. And so I'd like to introduce, or I'm very excited to have one of our own gastroenterologists at University of Illinois, Dr. Keith Naylor, who's an assistant professor in the College of Medicine. And as I mentioned, he's a gastroenterologist, which is a GI doctor. And he's going to speak to us today about risk-tailored cancer screening. So welcome, Dr. Naylor, and thank you for joining us today.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, great. So I'm having a little trouble with my my desktop camera, so I apologize that you can't see me, but I will use my phone for the panel so that we can see each other. I promise that I have a tie and that I'm smiling. But thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to speak today. I hope that you also have the correct set of slides, just a single slide. I have 2 screens, so sometimes it gives my presenter view. But today I'll be discussing the risk-tailored cancer screening. Just to go through a little bit of the importance of the continuation of prevention and screening amongst cancer survivors as well as their family members as well. So we go. So just the objectives of this talk, it's going to be obviously a brief talk, but to go over what actually is risk tailoring and why is it important for cancer screening and survivorship, to review the importance of your family's cancer history and how it can actually affect cancer screening and prevention, and also to offer some strategies for cancer survivors and their family members to implement some of the things that I talk about today and will be discussed in the following talk after mine as well. So just to begin with a definition in terms of risk tailoring, it's basically the idea of adjusting guidelines or recommendations so they better reflect the risk of an individual in order to provide them healthcare that's more directly applicable to their personal experience. So you can think about it, we do this often in terms of individual medical history. So for instance, if someone has a history of cardiovascular disease, they may have their doctor tell them that they need to try to get their cholesterol down to a certain level based on that personal history. If they have a family history of many individuals in their family with heart attacks or other kinds of cardiovascular illness, they may have even a more aggressive sort of strategy at things like diet, exercise, or medications to control that disease to try to prevent them from developing it. And then lastly, in certain situations, there can even be genetic testing that allows someone to know that they have an increased risk of certain diseases, including cancer, that can affect the way that we screen or treat that patient in the future, not only for a particular illness that they may have a direct effect on their health, but actually other illnesses as well that may be in connection with some of those issues genetically that they may have. I like to think about this in terms of one size does not fit all. And as a provider, one of the things that we deal with is when we see a patient for the first time or sometimes over time, we have sometimes not very much information about how we can actually personalize the way that we treat patients. So it's sort of like everyone's coming in and we know that for certain types of diseases, we may offer screening, but that screening may not actually be appropriate for every individual. So some people can have an increased risk based on, as I mentioned, some of their individual factors, but also their family history, or even in some cases, the genetic history of themselves or individuals within their family. So the more that we can really learn about an individual, the more that we can tailor the care that we provide in order to give them the most benefit and hopefully avoid any harm. So I'll start by just discussing two of the most common cancers that we screen for as examples of how we would use risk tailoring. So if you think about breast cancer, the general screening guidelines through the United States Preventative Services Task Force would generally recommend someone without a known family history to start undergoing screening with mammography at the age of 50 to 74 years, and that's actually a relatively recent update. As many of us know, there was a lot of controversy when they moved the screening age back. But to keep in mind, as I'll talk about in a moment, this only really applies to a certain group of individuals, and we have to keep in mind how we use these and if we're using them appropriately for each individual patient. For colorectal cancer, which I personally provide care for, in terms of screening, usually adults would start at the age of 45. That's actually an update where they've reduced the age from 50 to 45, and then up to the age of 75, once again for individuals with no known family history. And we would usually refer to those as average risk individuals. And these are the screening recommendations that most of the public is aware of, but they really don't apply to all individuals the same way. So one of the very important things about screening is when we oftentimes talk about it generally, we're talking about screening the entire population of the United States. But when you get down to an individual patient, the guidelines and the way that we approach individual care will be very different than what you may hear for general screening guidelines. And that's what I'll be really discussing for the remainder of the talk. So when it comes to colorectal cancer, we know that family history is very important at sort of predicting someone's individual risk. And the more individuals a person has in their family that have been diagnosed with colorectal cancer, it has a significant impact on their individual risk. So I use this as an example to show how family history does impact an individual's risk and how we would use that to then screen or follow them more closely based on how many individuals in their family may be affected. So just as the slide shows, if you have no family history of anyone you know of with cancer, in this case, we're referring specifically to parents, siblings, or children, the overall lifetime risk of colorectal cancer is generally thought to be less than 5%. If you have one individual that's a parent, a sibling, or a child with colorectal cancer, that risk then increases to about 10% over the lifetime, and then subsequently increases further as you have more individuals in your family that may be affected, particularly anyone who's diagnosed before the age of 45 that's within that parent, sibling, or child frame. That would actually significantly increase the risk for an individual who's directly related to them. And the reason that this is important is because, as I mentioned, if someone doesn't really, if they're not aware of the family history, or if they're not aware how that can affect their screening, they may kind of be familiar with general screening guidelines and think that they could wait to the age of 50, when in actuality, if they have someone who's diagnosed earlier at the age of 45, we can actually begin screening 10 years earlier than that earliest diagnosis at the age of 35. So that's sort of an example of how we could tailor screening and when we begin, and how quickly we would start someone on the pathway to screening and prevention. So tailoring actually would work both ways in some cases, not only with increasing care that's received, but in some situations, knowing more about a person's family history can actually let us know that they may not need as aggressive screening. So recently, the same organization, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force, has made some recommendations regarding prostate cancer screening, which previously was recommended pretty routinely for healthy men. But now the belief is that men aged 55 to 69 should really have a decision with their healthcare provider to really identify if they have any individual or family history of prostate cancer, and have that decision about screening, because we know that it doesn't benefit everyone the same way. So knowing your history doesn't necessarily always mean that you would receive more testing. In some cases, it may be in that individual's interest not to undergo as aggressive screening or not to undergo certain tests if we know that their family history or their other medical history would suggest that they may not require that level of care. So how does this really impact survivors of cancer, which is obviously what we're focused on today? So one really important thing to remember is that when survivors of cancer are undergoing their routine care, much of that care is focused on prevention and early detection of any recurrence of their cancer. But as we all know, we're not just one organ, we're an entire body, and we still have risks for other diseases or issues that can occur. So if someone doesn't actually have any known family history for other types of cancers, they would typically be screened just like another individual who doesn't have any history of cancer. Say for a breast cancer survivor who is being screened for colon cancer, if they have no family history, they would typically begin at that recommended age of 45. But it's still important for that survivor to know their other family members' history, because if they have other family members who have diagnoses of other cancers at younger ages or more commonly in their family, they may actually need to be screened earlier for those other types of cancer, so we can continue to keep them as healthy as we can for as long as we can, and hopefully prevent any other diagnoses of other cancers in that individual or their family members. So, you know, one of the great things about as cancer care has advanced is we have more and more survivors that are, you know, living longer and longer in the United States. And in 2019, it was believed that almost 17 million cancer survivors were living. And if you really think about that, of course, it's not only the survivors, but those survivors have family members, children, you know, brothers, sisters, in some cases, grandchildren. And all of those individuals now are actually, you know, they're family members. So now they have a family history of cancer within their family. So these individuals, it's not just them that's affected, but also other individuals that are directly related to them. So it's very important to consider when you think about all the millions of people that are related to survivors or those who didn't survive from cancer, do we really understand our individual family history and how many people may be affected within our families, so we can have a better understanding of how to discuss it with our doctors and how to get care that really applies to our personal history and the history of our family. You can think about it like the ripple kind of effect, where each individual that's diagnosed kind of has a ripple throughout their family. But if you have multiple individuals within your family that are diagnosed, you may have several different things that we need to take into account. So sometimes when someone is initially diagnosed with the cancer, obviously the focus is very much on the treatment of that cancer. But we can't lose sight over time that other cancers that are common need to be considered as we move forward with their care. So this really focuses on the next sort of discussion, which is really the importance of family history overall. And what we know is that the assessment of family history can really be used to tailor care, as I mentioned, and that can include when we start screening, as well as how frequently that screening would occur. And in some situations, whether or not someone needs to see a genetic counselor, undergo further testing to see if there's a very high risk of cancer within themselves or other family members. The important thing actually within this discussion is that the information related to cancer family history is oftentimes very incomplete and doesn't necessarily reflect the history of the patient. So there was a study that looked at over 300 patients who actually had a known family history of cancer, but when they looked at the patient's medical record, less than half of those individuals actually had that documented within their medical record. So we need to be very aware that oftentimes, in medicine, it can be difficult to have all the information correctly documented, and family history certainly applies. But it can really affect the care of that individual as well as other family members if we really don't spend the time to make sure that individuals know their family history and that it's really accurately reflected in their own medical records as well as those of their family members. So unfortunately, race plays a part in this as well. And African Americans and immigrant populations are known to have even more difficulty sometimes in having a complete family history for multiple reasons, including sometimes there's some uncertainty in regards to not being in contact with their father or mother and not knowing much about the family history on either one of those sides. If they're a recent immigrant to the United States, they may not know their family as well. There can be actual estrangement where they don't have a good relationship with family members. And then one of the things we really try to focus on is fear or embarrassment in discussing cancer diagnosis among family members, because that's something that is a barrier that can be overcome. So hopefully we'll be discussing how we can more effectively take care of that barrier, because that's something that ideally we would not have in terms of our discussions. And I believe this is really starting to be discussed widely now, because the FDA recently had a focus on Black Family Cancer Awareness Week, where they really had a focus on discussing family history amongst particularly African American families, and that was actually this month. So really to provide an opportunity to everyone to discuss this amongst their families, but also to really let caregivers know how important this is, that we make sure that we remind our patients that their family history is very important and we should be routinely re-examining it. This is my second to last slide, and just to show briefly, and I think this will probably be covered in the next talk as well, when we talk about really having an accurate family history, one of the things we really try to accomplish is having 3 generations, generally children, siblings, and parents, which are represented in the pink colors there, and with the individual being represented by the hollow square. But if you can know more about your second-degree relatives as well, it can be very helpful, and those can be things like aunts, uncles, grandparents, nieces, and nephews. But in order to get this information, it's very important to really start the conversation early, because many of us know about our direct relatives, but you have to really start the conversation and continue it to know about those secondary and third-degree relatives to really get a full idea of your family history. So what are the strategies we can use to really improve this over time? One of them is to begin the conversation today with your family to really get comfortable at discussing cancer amongst our families, and then to know what you don't know and to try to find out more. So if you don't know much about a certain area of your family, within my family, there's always a family member who seems to know everything about everyone, and I may need to contact them to know more about family that I don't have contact with or how I can contact them. So it's important to really address areas that you don't know about and really try to fill in those gaps. The other is put it on paper, meaning really document it somewhere so it's not just in your head when you come to see your doctor, but you actually have it, you can show it to them and go through it in detail. Discuss and update your family history with your provider regularly, because it does change over time. And then last, use resources such as the Family History Toolkit, which will be actually discussed in the talk following mine. So as a provider, this is something that I try to remember to talk to my patients with as often as possible, because it really does make a big impact on the way that we care for not only the individual, but the individual's family. And that's how we can best prevent and treat cancer in a way where we can really avoid having increased mortality and morbidity, particularly within the African American or other underserved populations. So I thank you very much for your time, and I'll turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Dr. Naylor. That was excellent. And I think really highlighted the importance of family history and having the communication. Family secrets kill, and we really need to start that conversation. Survivors, caregivers, we need to start talking about family history. And I love the suggestion of having, finding that person that knows everything about the family that can really help you elicit your family history. And on that note, I want to go ahead and introduce Dr. Tara Maga, who's going to talk to us a little bit about how to obtain a family history and how to document that. So thank you, Tara.
All right, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Great. All right, so Dr. Naylor really set up this talk quite well, and I think we're going to be able to save some time because a few of my slides overlap with some of the information that was already shared. So we're just going to go forward. And so, like everybody has already said, as survivors, you're in a unique situation, and you can help protect your sisters, brothers, and children by sharing your diagnosis, as well as starting what can be difficult discussions within your family. All families are different. Some families are very open about their medical information, but in my experience, both personal and professional, most of the time, these discussions are difficult and people keep these things private for many different personal reasons. And so this is the slide that really overlaps quite well with Dr. Naylor's discussion. Why are we talking about family history? And you've heard it a couple of times already today, but it is probably the most important tool in understanding our risk and helping to personalize our care. And for us today, I would say personal and family history is most important in understanding our risk. And so for this slide, I just really want to say, most families fall in this average risk category. The majority, and these families can follow standard screening recommendations, which Dr. Naylor went through very well. Some families, though, belong in this medium risk category where they have a family history of cancer, but we haven't found a hereditary cause. They're not at high risk, but their risk can be high enough that we might change screening. Things like breast screening might happen earlier and more frequently, or like Dr. Naylor said, colon cancer screening might happen earlier and more frequently. And then rarely, a few families fall into this high risk category where we can find a hereditary cancer syndrome. And in these families, not only do we talk about increased screening, but we also talk about options to reduce risk and prevent cancer. And so like we heard from Dr. Manson, her pre-survivor lecture, choosing to remove our breasts or ovaries before we get those cancers if we know we're at high risk because of a hereditary syndrome. And so we thought it would be nice to have a few tips because this is not sometimes an easy discussion with family members. And so the first thing I just want to share, it is okay not to know everything about our family members' health. In fact, I would say it's normal. You don't need to know everything about everybody in your family for a family history to be valuable. So we don't want people to not come into genetics just because maybe they don't know about a few of their aunts on one side of their family or a few of their uncles. Bring with you what you have, and sometimes that can be enough to give us some clues so that we can do some testing and help understand that risk. And this was already brought up. So, ask your family historian. There's always one person, usually an aunt or grandmother, who knows everything about everybody in the family and has a lot of good information about what people have been through. And then if you can only get a little information, the most important information, at least for this assessment, are what type of cancer was somebody diagnosed with. And this can be hard to know for relatives, especially with female cancers like cervical cancer, uterine cancer, ovarian cancer. Sometimes hearing about that second or third hand, those can get interchanged in conversations with families. But all of those would tell us different things about a person's risk. So it can be important to ask follow-up questions like, how did they find that cancer and what kind of treatment, if any, did they need? And then the second thing when we're talking about type of cancer that's important to figure out, which can be difficult, is the difference between a primary cancer, where it starts in our body, what organ it started in, and a metastasis, so where it might have moved if it was found later stage. And so this is pretty common when people report that they might have had a distant relative with liver cancer or even a brain cancer, that we find out later that maybe those are metastases and maybe that started as a colon cancer or a breast cancer. And that's important to know the difference because, again, we're using this information to determine risk for family members. And then age of diagnosis is really important. If you can even get a range, sometimes I ask people I talk with in clinic, it's okay not to know if they were 40 or 41, but as long as you know that they were between 40 and 45, that's important information to have. That's very useful. And we can still use that to get testing or estimate somebody's risk. And then if somebody in your family has unfortunately passed due to their diagnosis, sometimes you can find this information on a death certificate, or there might be paperwork that family members might have. But if you're not the power of attorney, sometimes that is difficult to get those medical records. And lastly, we're getting out of COVID slowly but surely. Family get-togethers are becoming possible now, and those are great times to discuss this. Holidays is a good time to bring this up with family members. Family reunions, it is the season for family reunions. We're in summer now. Those are all really good times to start these conversations. And so some clues that there might be a hereditary cancer syndrome in the family, young ages of diagnosis. And so for some of the cancers we've been talking about, breast cancer, colon cancer, uterine and endometrial cancer, if that diagnosis was under 50, that is a clue. And so we would want to see you in genetics just to make sure we're not missing anything. Multiple cancers on the same side of the family, usually we think 3 or more. And especially if those cancers are known to go together in a hereditary cancer syndrome, which isn't your job to figure out. But if there's multiple people in your family, tell your doctor and they'll send you to genetics. And that's what we do. That's what we're here for. But for example, breast, prostate, ovarian cancer, and pancreatic cancer can go together. Colon and uterine or endometrial cancer can go together. And so those are clues that we should be thinking about genetic testing and genetic counseling. Multiple cancers in one person, and then less common cancers in close relatives, or if you have a personal history. Ovarian cancer and pancreatic cancer are 2 cancers, as well as metastatic prostate cancer. That alone, regardless of family history, we want your doctor to send you to genetics. So if they haven't, have that conversation, or I have my contact information at the end of this. So this is a tool. You don't have to come see a specialist to draw your family history. This is a tool through the CDC called My Family Health Portrait. And this tool actually is more than just cancer family histories. You can do family histories of diabetes, heart disease. It covers everything. And this is a QR code. I was new to this, but I'm sure most people on this call know what this is, so that you can directly link to this tool. And then I don't have time to go through it with you as an activity, but I just wanted to show you what you'll see when you click into it. So you'll see a button that says create a family history. And then it'll ask for some of your personal information. If you personally have been affected by cancer or another condition, and then it will also link to family members. You'll select what your family structure is. And like Dr. Naylor said, both first degree, second degree, and third degree, even sometimes fourth degree relatives we want to know about, but for the purposes of this, really just first, second, and third. So all the way out to your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, all of those people, if you can get that information, would be helpful. And then you can kind of click in and put that information in. Then it will actually draw a picture of your family, depending on what information you put in. And importantly, you can click on the risk analysis. And so it will tell you based on what I put in, for example, for this example, it's telling me that I might be at higher risk of getting colorectal cancer. And that's important for us to know. And, then you can take this to your doctor or call a genetic counseling clinic and get in and talk to a specialist. And so if your risk is increased, if you do this tool, or if you don't do this tool, but you happen to know, multiple people in your family have been through cancer and you'd like to talk to somebody in genetics, bring it up with your doctor, or you can contact us directly. At UIC, we have 3 genetic counselors that work in our clinics. And here I put my direct phone number that goes directly to me. It's a private voicemail and my email, and I'm happy to help anybody who hasn't been sent to genetics but thinks that it would be helpful for themselves and their families.
Thank you, Dr. Maga. That was excellent. I'm going to ask our providers now to join our panel. And as they do so, just remind you that, we heard some really important information here in the last 20 minutes. We heard from Dr. Naylor about the screening guidelines and how family history can affect those. And we heard from Dr. Maga how to take a family history. And so I encourage all of you to utilize the tool to start to think about and learn about your family history and to bring that information to your provider, your doctor, your oncologist, and share it with them to see whether your screening recommendations need to change or you possibly need to consider genetic testing. So thank you. Okay, so we've got a wonderful panel of care providers. We've got about, I'm going to run us over a little bit, maybe 10 minutes. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves and just to talk a little bit about, any experiences that you may have had caring for a cancer patient, where you learned something that changed the way that you communicate with patients or the care that you give. Again, learning from our lived experiences. So we'll start with you, Dr. Maga.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier, hearing all of the experiences of our survivors. And something that happened recently that really has changed my view. And as a genetic counselor, I have a patient sitting in front of me, but I tend to think of more of a family when I'm taking care of people. And I had a patient who was an inmate who tested positive for hereditary syndrome. And they were pretty concerned that they wouldn't be able to share that information with family members. And I had never considered it before as part of my job to tell families about these hereditary syndromes. Usually we tell the people that we find the hereditary syndrome in and we help them share with their families. But it really changed how I viewed that. And I actually ended up calling that person's sister in New York State and having a very long discussion about, I asked my patient, of course, and they gave me permission and signed forms that I could do this, and had a very long discussion about what this meant for her. And we found a genetic counselor in New York State that she could go to. And it just really changed how I felt about how I communicate to my patient, but also their family members.
Great, that's great advice. And I've even had patients get on the phone in the clinic room with me and say, call their family to clarify some of that. So I think that's a great suggestion. Thank you. Dr. Naylor, I know I introduced you earlier, but if you can just introduce yourself again and then maybe respond to the question, and then we'll hear from Dr. Manston, Dr. McLaughlin.
Sure. So my name is Keith Naylor. I'm a gastroenterologist. I primarily, can you hear me okay? Yeah, okay. I primarily see patients for cancer screening, but also take care of patients who have hereditary and familial causes of colorectal cancer. So, I thought a lot about this as well, and listening to the stories of the survivors and providers. I think one of the things that I've learned from this is patience as a provider, actually with my own family. I don't know if that would count as this because I'm not their doctor per se, but my father actually is a 2-time cancer survivor, but I still can't quite get him to get a colonoscopy. So I think sometimes as family members, it takes time to break down sort of walls with other family members in regards to fears or worry when it comes to healthcare. So in working with my own patients, I try to help them slowly have these conversations with their family members and be mindful that people aren't always ready to receive the information at the same time. So sometimes it can take quite a bit of time before people are ready to really consider their own health or open up to others. So I think that's one of the things that I've taken from my own personal experiences as well as working with my patients.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Naylor. I had the same problem with my uncle. I still can't get him to get a colonoscopy. So you got to meet people where they're at and just continue to encourage them and keep that conversation going. Thank you. Dr. Manst.
Hi. Hi again, everybody. Again, I'm Dr. Manst. I provide cancer survivorship services for patients at Mile Square Health Center at UIC, UI Health. And I was thinking about this question, and I'm pretty new, if you can tell by my appearance, in the realm of cancer survivorship. And I remember my first patient coming into clinic and going in to see her and talking to her about everything going on. And she had a walker, and she had migraines, and she had diabetes. And I had to assess all of these things in the context of cancer and really helped to start me thinking comprehensively about my patients and about their health and about their wellness. We're talking about so much today in all the different realms. And it's really framed how I address patient care visits and how I speak to all of my survivors that I see in clinic all the time. And it's important to take into account all the different aspects of their journey.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Manst. And Dr. McLaughlin.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon McLaughlin. I'm the Director of Gynecologic Oncology here at UIC, which means I'm a gynecologic oncologist. And I first want to just give deep gratitude to everyone here in the way all of these discussions have been framed just so positively and as a celebration, because I think an important barrier to myself to even becoming an oncologist was being willing to be with patients and care for patients when they are terrified, sad, scared, in some of the darkest times of their lives. And I did not think I had that in me until I think the first patient experience actually has very little to do with what I do now. I was a medical student, and I was an observer in a corner of a room for a man at the VA getting an end of life kind of discussion. There's nothing else that we can do for the cancer kind of thing. And as a human being, I had some thoughts about the way the attending was communicating, but more importantly, I was a person in the back of the room and I started crying. This was a deeply moving experience to witness. And the man looked past the attending and looked over to the corner of the room and said, you get it. And it was in that moment that I gave myself permission to be human and feel what people are feeling, and to check my own fear and anger and sadness at the door when I talk with patients, so that I can really hear them. Because I think that's the most important thing we can do as providers in communicating with patients, is actually listening.
Thank you. That's so important. And I think, one of the big things that I hear from patients who've had, not great experiences in the healthcare system is they didn't feel like they were being listened to. And so I just want to thank you for highlighting that. I think it's really important for us to listen and to find a connectedness with our patients, and for patients to find that connectedness with us, to build that trust, to care for them, to encourage them to participate in research, and just to be there for them through the entire care continuum. And so, as I mentioned earlier, getting that, I think it's so important for patients to get that care team around them, to find the docs that they feel like are listening to them and meeting their needs. And so I want to thank you all for sharing that. There's a couple questions in the chat, and then I have a couple questions for the care providers, and we're going to have to wrap this up just a little bit to make up a little bit of time. But there's one question in the audience for Dr. Naylor. Why, in terms of the colonoscopy prep, why is it the same for all, a 250-pound man versus a 150-pound woman?
My answer to that would be, it's actually, technically it's not the same for all. That's the prep that we start with. But as people who have undergone it may be aware that the prep doesn't always work the same for everyone. So sometimes we have to adjust it by either providing a different prep or more of the same prep. So it does get individualized, but to make it easy on primary care doctors and others, there's sort of a general prep that we start with. It's the safest prep sort of available, and the one with the longest track record, which is the jug that everyone is usually familiar with. But it can change depending on how they do with that medication.
Great, thank you. There was another question in the chat about whether the slides will be available later, and yes, they will. And this entire session is being taped and will be made available to everyone, including the link to the family history toolkit. So thank you. I'm going to ask one last question of the panelists. There's no more questions in the chat. But what are some of the changes, if you think about like cancer care and the area that you're involved in, what are some of the changes, either big or small, that you think are really important to improving cancer care? And I'll start with Dr. Maga again, and then we'll work down in the same order.
Yeah, so I haven't been practicing that long of a time, but something has changed quite a bit in the area of genetics. And that is, back when I started as a genetic counselor, we really, made patients go through extra hoops to show their family history. So if you told me somebody in your family had ovarian cancer, I kind of had to prove it before we did testing. We're no longer there because the testing has come down in price, and insurance companies very much understand the need for this testing. We're doing bigger testing. And so something that personally has changed for me, and I think other genetic counselors and providers who do this testing, is I listen to my patients, and if they at all think that these individuals in their family had these cancers, it kind of stops there. And we say, do you want to do genetic testing, which is a blood draw? Here's the kind of information we may or may not get from this. We could find nothing if that turns out your aunt didn't have that cancer, but we could find something, and we just go from there. And so I think access to genetic testing has become much, much easier and much, much affordable. In fact, I would say for our patients at UIC, pretty much nobody pays out of pocket for this test.
Great, thank you, Dr. Maga. Right, and we just remember that while the majority of cancers, that are out there are not due to these hereditary cancer syndromes, it is an important question, and please be empowered to talk with your doctor about genetic testing. It has become much more widely available, as we just heard, and see if it's right for you and for your family. So thank you. And Dr. Naylor? What are some of the changes that you think, big or small, that you think you would like to see around cancer care or in your area of cancer? Which is really around screening, right? I mean, thinking about, I think the family history piece is has really changed the way that, we think about guidelines and about cancer screening.
Yeah, I think the idea of really personalizing care is something that we're trying to move forward with, so that everyone is not put into the same box, because certainly different populations suffer more from certain cancers, and we should do our best there's only so much supply, so we should really try to focus on getting care to those who would benefit the most from it. So I think that's the part, both with screening and with cancer care itself, that I hope to see the most change in as we move forward.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Naylor. Dr. Manst?
I was going to say a very similar thing to both Dr. Taylor and Dr. Maga, getting care to those who need it. Definitely thinking about the screening realm, screening for cancer, screening for genetics, and bringing it to our population at Miles Square Health Center. We have a largely underserved population who doesn't typically have access to these things, and we bring it to them by implanting survivorship in the clinic there, and are able to offer them services that aren't typically offered. And just watching this blossom and watching it grow more as we grow our genetics initiative at Miles Square Health Center for primary care population, and enhance screening for cancers, colorectal cancer, cervical cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer across the health system and our clinic. Those are things that I'm looking so forward to seeing how that all evolves over the next couple of years.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Mance. Yeah, I think getting those screening tests out there, early detection is so important to pick up these cancers before they cause symptoms. When they're really at the most treatable stage is so critical, whether it's cervical cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, and lung cancer, which are the most common cancers out there. Dr. McLaughlin?
Thanks, Dr. Ganshaw. I have three things. I'll make it quick. The first one is, I think, one of the biggest things I have seen change and continue to change is recognition of our patients as entire human beings with families. We heard Dr. Maga say the entire family is my patient, and that's important for me to think as well, because whatever I can do for the human being in front of me has much more to do than the tumor inside of her, as a case may be. And I think when I started this back in the day, we still have tumor boards where we are laser focused on the cancer and we talk about what should be done, when really we need to think about the whole person. Which brings me to my second point, which is that words matter. And I think that's true, period, end story. We learned a lot about that in the last year and a half or so, but it matters in cancer care tremendously. And I think a very small thing that we can do as providers is be cognizant of the words that we use. We have often been trained to say things like, she failed Taxol, when did she fail Taxol or did the Taxol fail her? Or did I fail her by giving her Taxol? Each of those words have profound influences that are hard to measure but go a long way. And we can sort of start to change the system, especially those of us who are educators. And we are working with students and learners who may or may not become oncology providers, but they are going to become providers. And we are all, each of our survivors described teams and teams of providers and caregivers. And then my third thing is just a quick statement that cervix cancer is preventable. And if you get your screening and get your vaccine and get your kids vaccinated and tell all of your friends to get vaccinated and have all of their kids vaccinated, we can actually prevent. It is a vaccine that prevents cancer. It's a little thing, big deal. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Those were such inspirational messages. I think, hearing from our patients and our survivors and our caregivers about ways that we can improve care is important, but also hearing from our doctors on the front lines about things that they think need to see change. It's just so critical as part of this. And I think it's one of the exciting things about bringing us all together is that we can all hear each other speak and hear what we think is important, across providing care and doing research and then providing the support services that cancer patients need. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up session number 2. We've got a 5-minute bio break, which again will, so thank you again, panelists. And I'm going to introduce Maganette Magesha, who's going to take us also from the Wellness House, who's going to take us through a breathing exercise. And at the end of the 5-minute break, we will also announce the next raffle winner. We also have some survey questions that we're going to have you complete during the break. So when they pop up on the screen, please take the time to fill them out. They're just a few. So thank you, Maganette.
Let's see. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. As Dr. Gacho said, my name is Maganette Magesha, and I am a representative from Wellness House. I'm one of the senior oncology support counselors. So happy to be here with you today. I have to admit, I came prepared to do my mindfulness exercise, and wow, have I just gained so much rich information. I feel so fortunate to be a part of this conference, and just want to thank my new Shiros and heroes and the survivors, Maurice and Brenda and Kelly and Katie, for sharing your stories so bravely, just know that it has really impacted me this morning. So I thank you, and I thank you all to the providers who are here and are so passionate about the cause. So thank you, University of Illinois Cancer Center and Chicago Check for organizing this. I get the honor and privilege to represent Wellness House, which we got a shout out from one of the, or a few actually, of our of the survivors, just talking about the holistic model of care that we offer at Wellness House, which is really treating the mind, body, and soul. We have a long list of programs across, again, mind, body, and soul, and exercise. You get to hear from one of my colleagues already. My area of the house is as a psychologist, facilitating support groups, gathering people together who get it, right? Who can come together and feel less alone and discover ways to live through their cancer. I will be leading you today in a mindfulness exercise, and just a brief tip. We are beginning, research is supporting more and more an awareness that cancer is synonymous with things like depression and anxiety because of the trauma that is caused by the cancer experience. And so it's helpful to have a toolkit of exercises and ways, strategies to help cope with that. And one of the ways that we do this is through a mindfulness exercise. This specific mindfulness exercise is brought to you by UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center. And so just follow my voice, and I'll be going slowly so everyone can keep up. But if you can just follow what I ask you to do through this mindfulness exercise. Begin by bringing your attention into your body. You can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Begin to notice your body, seated wherever you're seated. Feeling the weight of your body on the chair and on the floor. And take a few deep breaths. And as you take a breath, bring in more oxygen into your body. And as you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor, the weight and the pressure and vibration and heat. You can notice your legs against the chair, the pressure, maybe the pulseness, the heaviness, or the lightness. Notice your back in the chair. Bring your attention into your stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, be aware of it. Try to let it soften. Take a breath. Notice your hands. How are they positioned? Are they tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften. Now notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Try to let your shoulders be soft. Now let's move to your neck and your throat. Try to let them be soft and relaxed. It's continuing to move to your jaw. Let your face and facial muscles be soft. Then notice your whole body be present. Take one breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Taking a breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So this mindfulness exercise is what is referred to as a body scan. And it's an example of a quick way to give yourself an assessment of where you feel tension. And it's also an opportunity to give yourself a gift by bringing the awareness back into yourself. There's so many reasons, especially in our world today, to feel tension, and whether that's our own medical illness through cancer, so many reasons to carry tension. But what a gift it is to be aware of that and to work proactively to soften yourself. And so I hope this exercise was just a brief gift for you. The great thing about mindfulness is it's something you can do anywhere you are, whether you're sitting in a chair at work, just after cooking a meal in the kitchen, or wherever you might be, even outside, maybe on the playground with your children. It's an opportunity for you to just pause life and give yourself a gift. So thank you for this opportunity to be here with you today. And I hope this was helpful.
Thank you, Magnet. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. Really appreciate your time joining us and providing us with these helpful tips. I don't think I introduced myself before. My name is Ifeanyi Beverly Chukwudozie. I am the Assistant Director for Training and Education and also the Program Director for Chicago Check at the University of Illinois Cancer Center. And I am here once more to give the winner of our second raffle prize. So our second draw happened, and the winner is Monica Keener. Last name Keener, from Vestavia Hills. Monica, congratulations. Thank you so much. And I'll hand over the mic to Kimberly to start our third session on cancer research studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed that brief minute of mindful meditation. So I appreciate that so much, Wellness House. And now I want to sort of shift our thinking from survivorship and care providers to the important work that our researchers do. I have the pleasure as a research advocate at UIC Cancer Center to work with these outstanding human beings. I get an opportunity to do some work with our MD, PhD students in creating sort of educational content to help patients and caregivers and survivors who want to get into patient advocacy to begin to understand what cancer research is like. And so one of those outstanding human beings is Ryan, and Ryan's going to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about what he does in terms of his passion towards cancer research. Ryan?
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. So my name is Dr. Ryan Nguyen. I'm the Chief Hematology and Oncology Fellow at the University of Illinois Cancer Center. I also take care of patients with cancer at UIC and the Jesse Brown VA. I want to thank everyone for having me on today. This taking care of patients with cancer is very personal to me. My grandma passed away from cervical cancer just as I was in college, and she was an immigrant and had a language barrier, and it was a a very challenging time for her and our family. And so this is a very personal experience for me, and being part of this panel and event today has been very empowering to see the patient perspective of this. Like I said, I take care of patients with cancer at UIC and the Jesse Brown VA. I also am a cancer researcher, and my research focuses on developing clinical trials for patients with lung cancer. And I also study enrollment disparities in cancer clinical trials. I wanted to give a brief overview of how we develop new treatments in cancer science, as well as an educational module on clinical trials that I'm working on with Kimberly through the Survivors Advising Scientists educational program. I do want to note that cancer research spans a broad range of topics, including screening, treatment, public health, disparities, and survivorship. And I think today's panel, after my talk, represents the diversity of science that's occurring in this field. So as you can see here, with regards to drug development and clinical trials, it's a rigorous process to get from these compounds, which we start with, to get to ultimately FDA approval for a drug to be used in the general US cancer population. We estimate it typically takes about 5,000 to 10,000 new compounds to go through this process to even get to one drug approval. This first section, highlighted in red here, represents basic science research, where drugs are discovered themselves and then tested in the lab environment prior to being tested in humans. This process can typically take between 3 to 6 years. Following basic science research, these drugs can then go on to be tested in humans through clinical trials. So clinical trials represent the first opportunity for scientists and patients to see how these new treatments will work in humans. Clinical trials are further split up into phases, which you may have heard of before. In phase 1, the drug is tested in a limited number of participants to determine whether or not the drug is safe in humans. In phase 2 trials, we test effectiveness and further study safety and side effects. These phase 2 trials typically enroll a larger number of patients compared to phase 1. Once a drug has gone through phase 2 trials, then we go on to larger phase 3 trials where we're further studying safety and efficacy, but we're doing this through a much larger patient population to make sure that the drug truly is safe and effective for the general population. Once the drug has gone through these phases, the FDA then reviews this drug to determine the data from those clinical trials and confirm whether or not it's safe and effective for the general US cancer population. Following approval, any studies that occur afterwards are known as phase 4 studies and help us determine any long-term side effects. So as someone who discusses clinical trials with patients as their doctor, as well as a researcher, I've seen that patients can often feel overwhelmed when they're approached about being on a clinical trial. With the guidance of Ms. Richardson through the Survivors Advising Scientists educational program, I've been developing a module on what to expect on a clinical trial. These are generated by real life questions that patients have asked me when I talk to them about clinical trials in our clinics here. And we've developed this model to cover topics such as who qualifies for a trial, who are the key people involved in this trial, what happens on the trial in terms of treatment and monitoring, things like who pays for the trial, which is a common question, and what happens after the trial ends. And you can see some of these topics which I had discussed, and this is just a sample slide from one of the modules that we're working on right now. What I think about is really great about these modules is that after I design them, I go over them with members of our clinical expert team, and then they're sent out to patient advocates. Patient advocates will see this slide at the end, and I think it's a great experience, the feedback that I've gotten on these modules, to learn how to develop these modules in a patient-friendly manner, to avoid medical jargon and lingo. And the other thing that's really helped me is in designing this module, it's also helped me think about when I talk to patients in the clinic about different concepts in terms of their clinical care as well as clinical trials as well. So as an early career physician and researcher, I'm very grateful to have this feedback and connection to patient advocates and survivors like you all. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I am, you know me, I'm always excited when I get the opportunity to be around my tribe. You guys always come to the table earnestly wanting to convey this very complex information in simple to understand language. And the way that you guys embrace the patient advocates who review your work and how humble you are about taking in those reviews and that feedback is outstanding. And so now we're going to add some additional folks to this panel that are no strangers to me, but I want to make sure that everyone here gets an opportunity to introduce themselves to the folks on at the event today. We'll start, of course, with Dr. K.
Hey, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for this event. I wanted to just mention briefly the kind of basic research that I do. My day and night job is the director of the Cancer Center, but my other day and night job is to run a research lab studying cancer. And our area of specialization is trying to find unique vulnerabilities in the cancer at the earliest stage of that research spectrum that you saw from Ryan. In the decades past, we focused on the cancer cell itself and the genes that were changed in that cancer cell. But in the last decade or so, we've been focused much more on the immune cells that are meant to attack the cancer, the way the cancer is nourished. And so in my research lab, we continue to seek for how your own body fights off the cancer that's forming and evolving and growing and spreading. And by understanding that, identify new ways to harness your body to attack the cancer or new ways to block the cancer. So I represent that type of laboratory researcher that studies what we refer to as the tumor microenvironment. And for us, this is a new frontier for drug discovery. And I'm glad to take any questions about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. K. You exemplify what our mission statement of Community to Bench. You've embraced me as a patient advocate, and you've been a great leader in terms of the collaborations between patient advocates and your cancer researchers. Dr. Molina.
Gracias, Kimberly. I'm going to speak this next part in Spanish and I'll change to English.
Excellent.
Buenos días, bueno, buenas tardes, casi. Soy la Yamile Molina, Yami, por favor, y soy una profesorita y una doctorita aquí en UIC. Y solamente quería hablar primero en español porque es muy importante para mí, porque soy la hija, la nieta, la sobrina, la amiga y de todo, ¿sabes? De personas que son sobrevivientes, que tienen tanto poder, ¿sabes? Que son tan poderosos en tanto. Y quería primero empezar en español. Voy a parar ahora porque yo sé que los intérpretes son buenísimos para este evento. So muchas gracias a ellos también. Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Yamile Molina. I'm a professor. I'm going to do this real fast. Yami, please, for short. And I just wanted to say my research interests are really based on my personal experience as somebody who's a daughter, a cousin, a granddaughter, a niece, et cetera, of cancer survivors and patients. And it's extremely important to me. And I work primarily in the socio-behavioral research field, specifically thinking and recognizing the resilience of survivors, especially those of us who come from underserved and powerful and resilient backgrounds. And then also talking about financial toxicity and what are structural barriers to our quality of life.
Dr. Molina, thank you. You know, you are my one of my spirit animals. Dr. Hamlish.
am Tamara Hamlish. I'm a research scientist in the UI Cancer Center, and I am a medical anthropologist. I focus on patient experience research, and that goal, it's different than patient-centered research, patient outcomes research. The goal of that research is actually to understand and document in a systematic way to be able to share with providers the differences between the medical experience or the medical model of disease, which starts with diagnosis and then moves into treatment and then moves into post-treatment recovery, and how patients experience the disease in their bodies, in their minds, in our healthcare system, in our families, in our communities, and in society at large. So shaping the way that, creating a systematic understanding that we can use then to develop interventions to transform the healthcare system into a much more patient-friendly environment, not just for patients, but as we've heard today from providers, to make it easier for providers to care for patients, to reduce some of the gaps or eliminate some of the gaps, reduce some of the barriers for all patients.
Well, thank you all for assembling today. And so I'm going to ask maybe a few questions, and I'm going to combine a few just because in the essence of time. So I want to ask first, in terms of patient engagement, there is no secret as of the last 2 hours, we have seen majority white physicians and white researchers. And yet we sit inside of a major catchment area of Black and brown folks that we serve. Now, I know, because I work with all of you guys, how passionate you all are about dismantling disparities. And I know the leadership that Dr. K has in terms of really being able to understand more about patient engagement. But as we look back over the last year with COVID-19, and we look at all the disparities that we see in healthcare, what do you guys really look at when you start to think very clearly, coming from your own personal experience, how are we going to do a better job at patient engagement and its relationship to research? Dr. Hamlish.
So I think that the most important thing is the thing that we've heard all day is to be listening, to engage in conversations, and to listen to those conversations systematically. So as an anthropologist, the word culture is actually one of my toolkits, but it's also a word that's used broadly as sort of the garbage pail of like, oh, that's culture, but really understanding how our family experiences, our community experiences, our language experiences shape the way that we interact with the healthcare system is, a systematic documentation of that, and starting with listening.
Indeed. Dr. Molina?
Thank you, Kimberly. Gracias. So I think for me, patient engagement and our focus on patient engagement really needs to start where you started, Kimberly, as always our leader in this, by talking about structural racism and structural oppression. And we can't get out of that. There's structural racism, there's xenophobia, there are a number of structural barriers that persist. And yet we involve in traditional forms of patient engagement have focused on what? On individual level issues, right? And blaming patients and their communities. And so I think for me personally, patient engagement involves first recognition of structural issues, and then second, co-creation and co-engagement with patients, with leaders in the communities, right? To battle against that, and both battle against the structural barriers and then reinforce the coping, that the community level coping and the patient level coping against that, right? Because, patients and communities, they don't live in a vacuum, right? We live and we breathe and we experience all of these things. And at the same time as we're experiencing them, we don't stay still. We're not waiting for someone to rescue us, right? So what are we doing? And what about what are we doing works for us and can we use to promote and to strengthen and to support, right? And so for me, patient engagement is really listening, exactly like Dr. Hamish said, and really having the calmness and having the humility to understand that while I love to talk, someone else is going to talk better around these issues, and then also tell me what I need to do and let me be a servant to them right? And let me see their leadership in that.
And Ryan, well, how cool is it to be in research and have all these requisite skills as it relates to research, but also having that personal background knowledge as a person of color? How do you bring all those things together, particularly in your new trials around disparities and your work from ASCO?
Yes. Like you were saying, something that I've noticed a lot as an oncologist is I talk with patients all the time about what treatments we recommend for their cancer. And when I look at the data and the trials that I'm basing these recommendations on, the patients who are enrolled in these trials almost never reflect the patient population that I'm taking care at UIC. And so a recent presentation I did at the National Oncology Conference, we looked at these trials that led to FDA approvals. And when you compare those populations compared to the US cancer populations, you have underrepresentation of Black and Brown populations, underrepresentation of minority and female populations as well. And so these populations in these key cancer clinical trials that we are basing all of our cancer decision making on, it just doesn't reflect the population I'm taking care of. So that's work that I'm conducting at UIC, and I think it's especially important to not only think about these as racial and ethnic disparities, but as structural violence and systemic oppression. And so we're looking at neighborhood characteristics and other components that might influence participation in clinical trials. And so I think it's really important to dive into these and understand the roots of these disparities, and then look into how can we increase representation so that our communities are represented in these trials and also have access to the newest and greatest in cancer medicine as well. We shouldn't be getting these, down the line compared to predominantly white populations.
Thank you so much. And I know that Dr. K, in terms of leadership, I mean, we are all dealing with the narratives around mistrust. We're dealing with structural racism, implicit bias, cultural competency. All of those issues are right in front of us, and particularly as we look at cancer care. And we're going to be looking at larger numbers of folks who possibly did not get a diagnostic or screening test due to COVID. And it's going to be a bum rush of Black and Brown folks coming through UI's health center and doing some research around those areas. And I know you can speak to what we're doing in terms of our 5-year strategic plan and how we're looking at these issues, and to tell our audience a little bit about those things that we are coming together as a team to address.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. You're right. There will be a bum rush, as you say, in terms of diagnosing new cancer patients and charting their course of treatment. But there's already been inequitable utilization of some of the tools that we have at our disposal to help all of the people in our catchment area, those people in Cook County and Chicago who may or may not understand the importance of screening, or may not have access to what I'll describe as precision oncology, highly defined treatment modalities. And so these are very large divides. I think we've retooled the Cancer Center from top to bottom to allow all of our members, whether they be researchers or staff or our partners as patient advocates, to start thinking about how to make sure everything we do is equitable. Are we screening in an equitable fashion? Are the new cutting edge tools becoming available in an equitable fashion? So at the moment, our strategic plan is designed to have our team think about that kind of equitable care front and center. Our partners in that effort are clearly you all, the survivors and the patients and the advocates who have thought about this deeply over the last decades. And so as we've done today, this bi-directional dialogue about assuring equitable care is so important. And for our part, it will be educating you, for instance, about screening and precision oncology. For your part, we need to know what are the problems you're facing so that we are overcoming those problems and not ignoring them because we're too focused on a new cutting edge technology that may or may not be may or may not be the right thing for you at the right time. So our goal is to overcome these inequitable barriers and provide that kind of equitable care.
I agree. I know that on one hand, representation matters, but it also we need to highlight what we have in place and the passion and the determination of the care, of the staff, from our physicians to our researchers at UIC. And that despite these issues of color or around race, the issue still is the care of the patient. And I think that we exemplify that. There's always going to be room for improvement. But the one thing I am certain about is, as you said, that bidirectional relationship. So you're always reaching out, and we have to do our parts as well as patients in this community. If we don't like something, we got to speak up. We got to be on community advisory boards. We have to fill out those surveys and tell folks what you don't like and what you do like, and be a part of, not only as an advocate, but as an activist in changing the way we relate to one another, because patients are just as smart about their bodies, and they know when things are not good. And we have to start to continue this language of oncology, as I like to call it. It's a way of talking to one another. And we are doing that very successfully, ain't we, Ryan? And when we talk about how we are working together as patient advocates and researchers. And so I thank you all. I don't see any Q&A questions from the audience, but if there's any one thing you'd like to end with, here's your opportunity. I'll go back around one more time. Ryan, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just want to thank everyone for having me on today. This has been truly, again, it reaffirms the work that I do, and I'm very happy to be part of this team and community.
You rock, Ryan. Dr. Hamish?
I just wanted to second something that Dr. Molina brought up, and that's that the burden is not on the patients. The burden is on the healthcare system. That the change needs to happen in the healthcare system. When we think about mistrust, we need to think about not educating patients, but educating providers, and not just individuals, but making those changes in the healthcare system so that the healthcare system is accessible and friendly, and that there is equity in the way that we deliver care.
Indeed. Dr. Molina?
Yeah, and to echo on that, I want to throw out that while bidirectionality is important, also bidirectional economic investment is crucial. And so as we're thinking about patient engagement, as we think about the engagement of our community partners, it's so crucial that we continuously think about fiscal independence and fiscal power, right? Which makes this possible, because engagement is important. It's important to be heard, and it's expensive to be heard, right? It takes time, it takes effort. It takes a lot of effort, especially if you've been talking and folks don't hear you and you have to repeat yourself, right? And so really emphasizing that there are structural supports to allow and enable participation is extremely crucial. And I'm really grateful, especially I want to call out ALAS and AYAS, who are groups that have worked with me and have worked with me in that understanding. And then I want to throw out there just one other point in terms of we are also constantly asking for representation. We need to really think about the structure of our science and the structure of our trials specifically. So for example, instead of emphasizing mistrust on the patient side, really thinking through the eligibility criteria of various clinical trials, and I'm thinking specifically about therapeutic trials, wherein it is not necessarily possible for those of us who are not insurable, for those of us who are underinsured, to be a part of that. That's an eligibility criteria that we cannot overcome, right? And so we are willing, we can't, right? And I would say that as a part of a strong scientific community who's constantly thinking about how to overcome barriers, this is the #1 dilemma. How do we have effective therapeutic trials that are outstanding in their science, that deal with confounders, deal with different problems, but at the same time are accessible to those communities who are us, right? And who are the most important and should always be the most important. How do we enable them to also have the same equitable benefits, right? And so how do we deal with and really think intentionally about what criteria are to make these opportunities available to everyone? Thank you.
Amen and amen. And Dr. K, close us out with your views.
Well, I'd like to, if you allow me, to focus on the young scientists in training, because diversification of that particular area of our Chicago community is so important. There are so many super excited students who want to get into science, and I encourage you all to support them, because their perspectives are now what's going to really allow us to achieve if we're fighting for equitable cancer care. We at UIC have been working really hard at this. University of Illinois Chicago is a minority serving institution. The majority of our students are from underserved populations. And quite frankly, our leadership is now spread out across the country, with Dr. Rob Wynn in Virginia and Dr. John Stewart heading off to Louisiana. The influence that UIC is now going to have is moving to a national level, from the East Coast to the South to Chicago. That couldn't have happened without young scientists fighting hard to make their way through the process of training as a graduate student, training as a medical student, training as an MD, PhD, as Kim well knows. And so I encourage you all to think about the power of basic research and the importance of a diverse trainee pool, and reaching out to your communities and saying that science and medicine is a valiant, valuable effort, and that we would be here to help support that diverse training. So I'll just leave that, close on that thought, that help us diversify that trainee pool and create scientists and doctors of the future that really will be able to hear your voice loud and clear.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. I appreciate each and every one of you, and want our audience to know that this is a committed group of folks who are really looking at these issues in very tangible and meaningful ways. And so I want to close out and thank you again. It is now time for the survey questions that we're going to put up, and then we're going to do another raffle. So Beverly is going to do that for us quickly, and we're going to place those. I think there are only going to be about 2 questions that are going to pop up. Yeah. Go ahead and answer those questions for us, and Beverly, take us away.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and the panelists during the research and clinical trials panel. We truly appreciate all your wisdom and information that was provided. And so we have our third draw today, and our third winner is Francisco Zepeda from Chicago. Francisco Zepeda, we will definitely be sending you an email with your $50 gift card. Congratulations once more. And I will actually give this to Melissa Simon. We have our community partners who will be coming on for the final and 4th session. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I should be handing this over to Dr. Pamela Gansha. Dr. Gansha, sorry.
Yep. Thank you, Beverly. Thank you. We're gonna skip the last bio break and kind of move into this last session so we can give our wonderful community organizations a chance to speak and to share with everyone the wide variety of resources that are available for cancer patients and for survivors. I think, and as well as many of the wraparound services. And so we're really fortunate today to have over 10 organizations participate with us. And I want to make sure we give everybody a little bit of time. So they're each going to spend about 2 to 3 minutes walking through the services that they provide and how you can connect with those services and learn more about those services. And so we're going to go ahead and share those slides right now. And then we'll end up, we'll have about 5 minutes at the very end for questions and answers for our community organizations. And then we'll have the final wrap up with our last raffle and with our closing remarks from Dr. Kirichewski. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gansha. We have Jeanette Gonzalez joining us from Alas. I think she mentioned she might be having some issues with her audio. Jeanette, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, great. Well, thank you. It's an honor for Allah's Wings to be a partner, a community partner with Chicago Czech. And so we just want to share a little bit of information about our organization, a little bit about our mission, our services, and how you can contact us. So Allah's Wings mission is to enhance the quality of life for Latina women impacted by breast cancer diagnosis by providing breast health awareness, education, and emotional support programs for Latina women and their families throughout the Chicagoland area. Some of the services that our organization provides are support groups. All of the support groups that are provided through our organization, they are completely in Spanish. All the educational workshops are in Spanish as well. And then one of the things that Alas, when it first started 10 years ago, because the organization celebrated 10 years this year, so we're really excited to be celebrating our 10th anniversary. One of the things that it was really known for was its Alas on Wheels program. So the organization decided, I don't know if everyone's really familiar, back 10 years back ago, that there was an organization called UICC, and UICC did a lot of breast prostheses and things like that. And when UICC closed, Judy Gittleman, who's the executive director of Allah's Wings, decided that she wanted to carry on that portion of the services that UICC provided, and decided to put this program together, this Allah's on Wheels, which is a mobile salon, which gives women the opportunity to get prostheses and wigs and sleeves if they're facing issues of lymphedema. And then Alas also offers yoga that's completely in Spanish as well. And so, the way to get in contact with us is through the phone number that you see here on this slide. Also through the email that you see here at admin@alaswings.org and our webpage. And it's really interesting. I want to share that when the pandemic hit, a lot of organizations such as ours thought that, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could have happened to us. But interesting enough, we were able to pivot and teach our women and guide them on how to use Zoom. And now recently, when we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and just last week we had an educational workshop with a breast cancer surgeon from Advocate Illinois Masonic Hospital. There was a lot of women from all over Latin America. So we're having women join in from Guatemala, from Argentina. So it's just really, really interesting where our reach is now not only now becoming the Chicagoland area, it seems to a lot of different places in Latin America, and also recently also in the East Coast. We've been having people join us from Massachusetts and from New York. So it seems like there is a big need for Spanish language support for women that are impacted by a breast cancer diagnosis.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
Okay, next is the Blue Hat Foundation.
Hi, good morning. It is such an opportunity, a great opportunity to be here, and this has been such a great event today. So the Blue Hat Foundation was formed after my own experience with colorectal cancer, and after reviewing that there were no services during that time in 2003, I identified the services that were still in need today. And so we provide education for colorectal cancer screening to minority and medically underserved communities. In addition to our education piece, we also educate researchers and geneticists on the importance of understanding medical history and community engagement as a way to do community engagement and understand why communities of color push back from clinical trials and genetic testing. We are also heavily engaged on research boards, providing our patient perspective in research. in addition to support services for patients who are in need of navigation, not sure where to turn, not sure where to go after a cancer diagnosis, during a cancer diagnosis, and if they need that patient advocate, if there are services that they're not quite getting at the hospital or they feel like they're not being listened to, then we support that patient by making sure that they have an advocate with them and supporting them throughout their cancer journey. In addition, with our support services, we try to connect patients to resources that they need in terms of whether it's rental assistance, groceries, clothing. We try to assist them as best as we can with resources that they may need. So that was a quick overview because I know we are short on time. So thank you for having me. And you can reach us at, my direct email is candace@bluehatbowtie.org or 773-531-4158.
Thank you, Candace. This is great. And it's wonderful to see organizations like yours really promoting genetic testing and some of the family history information that we presented earlier. To get that across a lot of community orgs would be really wonderful to see. So thank you for spearheading that. The next group we're going to hear from is Force.
Hi, my name is Angel Moses. I represent Force. Wait a second. Our mission is to improve the lives of millions of individuals and families facing hereditary breast, ovarian, pancreatic, prostate, colorectal, and endometrial cancers. Our community includes people with BRCA, ATM, PAL, B2, CHEK2, PTEN, or other inherited gene mutation, and those diagnosed with Lynch syndrome.
Great, thank you. It's so good to know that there are organizations out there that can help some of our previvors and those who are affected with cancer who find out that that's due to a genetic mutation, that there's a support group for those previvors and those survivors with these genetic mutations. So thank you, Force.
Okay, I had a partner on here, but I'm not sure where she.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead,
that's
keep going.
Okay. Heather. Okay, I'm not sure where she is. So I just wanted to just quickly give our helpline number. We can be reached at 866.
Sorry about that. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for the intro, Angel, and thanks for the opportunity again to be here. Just to touch briefly on the services that Force provides. The goal is to accomplish the mission through education, really 3 pillars. So education, support, and then also through serving as an awareness and research champion. The support community of peers and professionals the goal is to ensure that really no one feels alone in this journey, to educate and create awareness for yourself and your family. Again, Force is a champion and they advocate for access to care and better treatment and prevention options for yourself and also for your family. And the last piece I think that we would just like to add is the contact information is noted. And on the website, there's just a vast variety of resources available, everything from support groups to webinars, photo galleries, research recruitment, various public policy issues, messaging boards, private social media groups, a lot of resources that you can access to kind of help support you throughout your genetic journey, if you will.
Great. Sorry about that. Thank you so much. We seem to be moving in alphabetical order, and so we're going to go on to our next group, which is Gilda's Club. I'm sorry to rush us through this, but I want to try to make sure that we can end on time and be cognizant and respectful of everyone's time today. So thank you, but this is so important. So Gilda's Club, we'll have you go next. Can you unmute yourself?
Debbie, can you hear us?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is my coworker Jasmine Carrasco on?
She is. It looks like she can't unmute herself. She can't find the unmute button. So
Oh, okay.
we'll try to unmute her, but if you want to go ahead and start.
Sure. Okay. Sure thing. So welcome and thank you for having us here. Gilda's Club Chicago is a support organization to offer anyone who's been impacted by cancer. We provide free emotional and social support to anyone impacted by any form of cancer. Looks like Jasmine just got on, so let's see if she's able to speak.
Hi,
Jasmine.
everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Debbie, for taking the lead on that. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Jasmine, and I'm responsible for our Spanish language support at Gilda's Club Chicago. Our mission has always been to ensure that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community. We're happy to be here with other community organizations and really like to show support for Chicago CHIC every time we get the opportunity. Gilda's Club offers free social and emotional support programs to anyone who's been impacted by cancer. We have support and networking groups, social events, lectures, art and healthy lifestyle classes, and so many more unique programs being added every month. Although in-person support is part of what makes our program so special and impactful, since last March, we've been supporting everybody virtually. You can find all of our activities on our website at gildasclubchicago.com. You can also give us a call at 312-464-9900. If you're looking specifically for Spanish support, you can always reach out to me directly. I will go ahead and put my personal email and extension into the chat, just in case anybody was wanting that specifically. And I think that about wraps it up. Thank you guys for having us here. Want to be mindful of the time.
Great. Thanks so much, Gilda's Club. And it's just wonderful to hear about organizations that are addressing some of the language barriers to these services by providing multilingual support. So thank you. The next group is the Illinois Tobacco Quit Line.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. My name is Marilyn Felix. I am the Health Promotion Specialist for the Illinois Tobacco Quit Line. Just to share a little bit about the Quit Line, we're funded by the Illinois Department of Public Health and managed by the American Lung Association. We're a free telephonic counseling service, and we're able to offer free nicotine replacement therapy to all Illinois residents that are eligible. We do also have a referral partnership program where we work with your organization to help your patients or clients be successful with their tobacco cessation journey. If you want more information about our Quit Line, you can visit our website at quityes.org. We do also have free materials available that you can place around your organization as well, and you can order those on our website also. The Illinois Tobacco Quit Line is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We do also have Spanish-speaking staff on site and an interpretation service of 250 plus languages. And we do also have a line for people who are deaf or hard of hearing as well. And if you do have any more questions about the referral partnership program, please feel free to contact me on my email that's listed on the slide, or you can give me a call as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so important to hear about some of the prevention services and the important services around tobacco control. I think that, quitting smoking is one of the biggest things that we can do to reduce the risk for many different types of cancer. So thank you. Our next organization is Immerman's Angels.
Hello, my name is Jonah. I am a cancer support specialist at Immerman Angels. Essentially, our mission is to ensure that no one faces cancer alone. We're a peer-to-peer program, and what we'll do is if you're an individual who's been impacted by cancer, you can reach out to us, go to our website, fill out a registration, and we'll connect you with a peer who's been through something similar. And we serve all cancer types, anyone who's been diagnosed with anyone who's been diagnosed with any type of cancer, thank you, and previvors, so anyone who has a genetic predisposition to cancer, so BRCA positive, Lynch syndrome, but you may not have been diagnosed yet, we can find somebody to match with. Also caregivers, family members, friends of people who've been impacted, we have caregiver mentors for you as well. The power of our organization is that we help individuals who've been diagnosed with cancer and their families, people who've been impacted by cancer, find someone else to speak to so they're less alone. I myself have experienced the power of mentorship. I was mentored by a tremendous mentor, and also shout out to Gilda's Club. I had tremendous mentors with Jeanette and Debbie over there as well. So if you need help, or if you want to become a mentor as well, if you want to volunteer with us, that's incredibly powerful. And I found it incredibly powerful. It's really a way to share your journey and use the journey that you've been through with cancer to help others, which can also be incredibly healing. My email is right there on the slide, and our website is right there as well. It's also in, I also just posted it, and we do have some online content for in meetings for people as well. So that's it. And if you're looking for support, please go to the website. If you'd like to volunteer, please go to the website. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I love the mentorship aspect of that, and really bringing cancer patients and caregivers and reaching out to caregivers, but to have that one-on-one mentoring relationship is so important. Remember all those dimensions of wellness we talked about earlier. So many of these organizations can help you connect you with services that can improve your wellness. So our next organization is our own Miles Square Health Center.
Thank you, Dr. Genschow. So I'll just share some information about Miles Square. Their mission is to provide holistic quality health services in the midst of underserved urban community, including things like restoring health, preventing disease, promoting healthy lifestyles. It is a medical home for primary care for all age groups. There's preventive care like flu shots and health screenings as well, women's health care, and vision and dental care. So we did leave the contact information here. There's a phone number and also the website to visit for more information. And as Dr. Genschow mentioned in the chat, we will be sharing all of these slides with everyone who is in attendance today. So you will receive a copy of all of this contact information.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And remember, Miles Square is also your home for cancer survivorship care. So please reach out if you would like to explore getting connected with cancer survivorship experts. So thank you. Our next organization is the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition.
Yes, so they were unable to, they were actually unable to attend this event, but they wanted to share their information with all of you as well. So their mission is to save lives through the prevention and cure of ovarian cancer and to improve quality of life for survivors and their caregivers. They provide programs and services for both survivors and caregivers to focus on mind, body, and soul, from everything from nutritious meals to support groups, education series. They aim to improve quality of life. So Karen Young is the contact person. She gave us her phone number as well as her email. And for more information, you can go to ovarian.org.
Great. Thank you, Melissa, for presenting them. Okay, and we have the Patient Advocate Foundation.
So good morning, good afternoon. I'm Shanta Chambers, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I want to introduce some of you to Patient Advocate Foundation. We're actually a national nonprofit headquartered in Hampton, Virginia, but we actually serve all 50 states and US territories. And what we actually do is we work one-on-one and provide one-on-one case management support to help individuals living with chronic and complex conditions. Of course, that includes the full portfolio of oncology, as well as 600 plus other conditions. And so our support includes everything from helping individuals identify and enroll in health insurance to even finding financial resources to offset cost of living expenses such as utilities, food, transportation, etc., to even for those individuals who find themselves needing to apply for Social Security disability, we actually work alongside patients or their caregiver to really help folks actually mitigate and navigate through that Social Security disability process. So for the sake of time, everything is here. I encourage everyone to visit our website at www.patientadvocate.org. And please know that although we may not be physically in the Chicago, Illinois community, that we are never more than a phone call or a click away. And we're here to assist you as you begin your journey. And we're here to be a resource to help you mitigate any barriers to care that you may experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Shanta. This is so important. And I hope providers and patients alike are listening and learning about these, all of these important services for our patients. The next group we're going to hear from is Peer Plus Education and Training Services.
Good afternoon, Phyllis Rogers, Peer Plus Education and Training Advocates, known as Boots on the Ground. We are your source to resources, support, and services, and our partnerships throughout the community. And today has been really important to me. I am a stage 3 19 lymph node colon cancer survivor, and I come from a big family that has had cancer. I've lost my mom and a lot of others in my family from cancer. So today was really important to me. Thank you, Kimberly and your team. You guys did a wonderful job in putting this event together. Peer Plus is known and well respected for the services that we do provide to those underserved and underrepresented. During COVID, we continued to stay busy by bringing resources to the community in ways of assisting with rent, food, transportation, and just emotional support. So I want to thank you again for the opportunity. Everybody be well.
Thank you, Phyllis. This is, again, so important and so comprehensive, and learning so much, hearing from each one of you about some of the services I wasn't even aware about. So I hope everyone's paying attention, providers included, and learning about this, and we will send out these slides when we're done. The next organization we're going to hear from is Sisters Working It Out.
Hi, it's Aaliyah Graham here representing Sisters Working It Out. I am a one-year breast cancer survivor, and now a brand new advocate to the entire process. Sisters Working It Out is here to serve as a catalyst force in eliminating breast cancer disparities in Chicago and the Chicagoland area. We do things like patient navigation. There is an amazing Day of Beauty that we do annually, and I don't want to take up too much time. So if anyone has questions, you are welcome to contact us at the information provided on the slide. It's also in the chat, and we'll keep it moving. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks so much. And it's so wonderful to hear about cancer survivors who've become really involved in these organizations. And I hope the survivors out there are thinking about ways they may want to get involved if they've got the time and the space to do that. So thank you. The next organization we're going to hear from is Triage Cancer. We can't hear you, so you may need to unmute. Melissa, do we have a representative from Triage Cancer? Oh, okay. So can someone unmute Joanna? Joanna Morales. Joanna, I think we can hear you now. I heard a breath. There we go.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm Joanna Morales, and I'm CEO of Triage Cancer. And we are a national nonprofit organization that provides free education on all of the legal and practical issues that come up after a cancer diagnosis. And we do that by providing free events, both in person and online. We also provide free educational materials and resources in English and Spanish. And we also provide trainings for healthcare professionals. And if people need one-on-one assistance with issues like employment, taking time off work, working through treatment, understanding accommodations, health insurance options, how to use your insurance once you actually have it, estate planning issues and financial issues, we actually do provide free one-on-one assistance through our legal and financial navigation program, which you can access on our website at triagecancer.org/get help. So I will leave it at that because I know there's a limited time today.
Great, thank you so much. Us2 International.
Hi, everyone. I am Rebecca Bauk here on behalf of Us2 International. I'll be really quick and just say that Us2 International is a prostate cancer support education and advocacy group. We have a number of different services that are available, including our support programs, not only for survivors and patients, but their caregivers. We have a Spanish-speaking group. We've just started a deaf men's group for prostate cancer support. We have a number of forum for female caregivers with different topics for each of those groups. And we have a forum for gay men and their partners. We've also just launched our Black men's prostate cancer support group, and their first meeting is going to be on Monday. So we're really excited about the support angle. We also offer resources such as navigation tools for patients, as well as financial assistance programs. And we're joining forces with Zero, who is another prostate cancer organization here in the United States. So all of our information is here. We're here to help. So I will leave it at that. But thank you very much. I've actually learned a bunch. I've been taking a bunch of notes about all these other wonderful organizations as well. So it's been a pleasure to be here.
Great, thank you so much. And I've just been monitoring the chat and seeing so many people talking about how we're really raising awareness by just giving everyone a chance to talk about these support services, both among providers and patients. I think our last organization is Wellness House.
Thanks,
very
Dr.
excited to be collaborating with them at UI.
Thank you, Dr. G. I actually cannot undo my video. So if you can do that for me, that's fine. If not, no worries. I'm Kelly Mitchell, really happy to be here. I like to think, oh, here I go, sorry. There we go. I like to think that Wellness House picks up where someone's medical team leaves off. And by that, I mean, we address the social, emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual impacts of navigating cancer. We take a very holistic approach to psychosocial support. Our free programs fall in the areas of information and education, nutrition, stress management, exercise, support groups and counseling, and child and family programs. If you were here for the breaks today, you got a little taste of Wellness House with Vanya, who's one of our exercise specialists, and with Meganette, who facilitated the mindfulness exercise, and that would fall in our stress management area. For us, a participant, of course, is anyone who has received a diagnosis, and that's any diagnosis, but we wrap our arms around everybody because we certainly know when one person is diagnosed, it's like dropping a pebble into the water and that ripples out, and the people that love and are supporting the diagnosed individual are also impacted. So everyone is welcome at Wellness House. The last thing I want to say, because I want to be mindful of time, is the very robust partnership that we share with UI Health at the Survivorship Clinic, at Mile Square, at the Cancer Center. As an organization and for me personally, I am so grateful for this partnership as we work together to increase access and equity for folks impacted by cancer. I do also want to mention that participation in our programs in partnership with UI Health are not limited by where somebody is receiving their medical care. Of course, UI Health patients are welcome, but people are welcome to join us no matter where they're receiving their medical care. Our programs remain online for now. All the information is there. We look forward to being back in person on site at UI Health as soon as it's safe for all of us to do so. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Kelly. And thanks for providing those services. And I apologize. We have one more wonderful group so close to our heart, the Yaz group. So I want to give them a chance to talk and then we'll wrap this up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Talia Holzman Castellans, and I'm the project manager for Young and a Survivor, also known as YAS. YAS's mission is to ensure comprehensive, high-quality, equitable, supportive care for all young women in Chicago diagnosed with breast cancer before the age of 45 and their families. We prioritize women from underrepresented groups who face barriers of care due to race, ethnicity, income, citizenship status, language, disability, sexuality, or sexual identity. We are a UIC-based network of healthcare providers, community-based organizations, researchers, young survivors, and metastatic thrivers who work together to connect young women diagnosed with breast cancer with available and appropriate resources and services to meet their unique needs, such as fertility, work accommodations, and things of that nature. We also increase the capacity of healthcare providers, patient navigators, and community health workers to meet the unique needs of young women living with breast cancer. And you can connect with us over email at youngandasurvivor@uic.edu, online at youngandasurvivor.org, or on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at youngandasurvivor. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Talia. And thanks for this important work that you're doing with the young breast cancer survivors. So we're going to go ahead. I have a bunch of questions for all of the organizations, but just to be respectful of everyone's time, I'm going to encourage and hopefully the groups here have connected by email and will continue to work together to find ways to overcome some of the implementation barriers that are present when trying to sort of push into hospitals and into clinics and to get out to patients. And I hope that at least you all can continue to connect and share those experiences and what's working to get you and to get these resources out to our patients and to make providers aware. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this part of the session and invite back our director of the University of Illinois Cancer Center, Dr. Jan Kitajewski, for our closing remarks. And then we will end this with the final raffle after he is done. So thank you.
Thank you, Pam. So first off, thank you everybody for participating in this event. It's a privilege for me to spend time with all of you, especially the survivors and advocates who are striving for a rich life as they chart their paths through and beyond cancer. Your voice, perspective, drive inspires me to work harder to understand your needs and find opportunities for your care. Thanks go to the staff of the UI Cancer Center and Chicago Cancer Health Equity Collaborative, CHEC. Thank you, Mohammed, Beverly, Melissa, for organizing and supporting this event. Thank you, Pam, for overseeing and inviting the researchers and clinicians from UIC who participated. And finally, thank you, Kim, for just about everything. I also want to just very quickly thank all of these key partners we heard from Wellness House, Gilda's Club, Force, Blue Hat, Alice Wings, Illinois Tobacco Quit Line, Immerman Angels, Miles Square Health Center, National Ovarian Cancer Coalition, Patient Advocate Foundation, Peer Plus Education and Training Services, Sisters Working It Out, Triage Cancer, US2 International, YAS, and other key partners. I'll practice saying that fast 3 times on my future speech practices. This is so exciting to see this rich group of organizations fighting hard to help patients with cancer. Let's review something very briefly. Cervical cancer can be prevented by receiving a vaccine against HPV, human papillomavirus. This is a type of cancer that can be pretty much completely prevented with vaccination. Lung cancer incidence drops significantly when people don't smoke. Colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer can be treated successfully if detected early. Seek out appropriate screening and knowledge about your family, your genetics. Take care of yourself and be informed. To those pre-vivors and survivors that joined us today, please don't forget that in the words previvor and survivor is the word root vivo, which means life. I've learned today that your lives are so full and you are so passionate about working against cancer. You seek to be empowered, you seek to be healthy. Today we worked as partners and we are blessed to be able to harness your energy to help prevent, treat, and survive cancer. As Aaliyah said just a few minutes ago, let's keep it moving. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. K, and thank you, everyone. We're going to close this out with Beverly announcing our last raffle winner, and then we will end the session. So thank you for all of your participation this morning. And as Dr. K mentioned, to all the organizers, survivors, researchers, and care providers, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Gansha and Dr. K. I am going to give our final raffle, and the winner of our final gift card, and it's of a value of $100, goes to Sherry Silver. Sherry Silver of Buffalo Grove will be sending out the final the email to you with the gift card soon. Thank you so much, everyone, for being and here with us till the end of this event. We really enjoyed planning this, and I'm going to hand the mic to Kimberly to end this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Again, to all of the people behind the scenes that made this event what it is today, all of the collaborative thinking and working and the passion that goes behind making sure that the survivor is always first at the Cancer Center. And so we will definitely make sure that you get the information from our the surveys that we've asked you to complete today. I thank Dr. K for his outstanding leadership, all the survivors that have been on our panel today, our care providers, the people who are on the front lines, giving us those diagnoses, but also being so careful about our care and our treatment, our researchers. You all are at the bench, making it do what it do, as they say. And we are just going to always be forever grateful for the intensity of the work that you do day in and day out. And we could not be, I'd be remiss if I do not say to our community resources, particularly those brothers and sisters in this cancer struggle who have defined themselves as 501c3s, who want to make sure that awareness is there. They want to make sure that the supportive services are there, the things that they felt weren't available to them, that is a part of their advocacy. And so to all of you, I say thank you. And we're so incredibly grateful for what you do. Be mindful to the physicians that are on the call, that these organizations, if you're not seeing their flyers, if you're not seeing their services, then you need to connect to them as well, because you're doing your patients an extreme disservice without making sure they're connected to these resources. And so I just say thank you to everyone. We have endured the rain, but yet we still had this wonderful celebration. And to all, just have a great day. And just remember that, it's nothing about us without us. And we are the cancer survivors. And thank you so much for celebrating our day with us today. Have a great day.